Chapter 1725, Blood Cloud Palace. Chapter 1725, Blood Cloud Palace. Jian Wushuang and He Xiu appeared in a gorgeous and brilliant Milky Way. This is the Milky Way and this is the base of the lineage of star. Jian Wushuang brought He Xiu along with him and walked in the stretch of Milky Way slowly. Along the way, he introduced the lineage of star to He Xiu continuously. As He Xiu listened, he became extremely shocked. Previously, he had grown up in the holy kingdom of real Wushu. Although he had heard of the 10 sanctuaries, he had never really gone there before. It was not until then that he knew how prosperous the 10 sanctuaries were in a holy kingdom could not be compared to them. For example, the lineage of Star was a huge monster to him and it was many times bigger and more powerful than the holy kingdom of real Wushu that he had been in previously. As Jian Wushuang introduced the lineage of Star, he also sighed with emotion. It should be known that tens of thousands of years ago, when Lei Chao had brought him to the lineage of Star for the first time, his expression had been the same as He Xiu's. In a flash, tens of thousands of years had passed. At that moment, he was one of the hall masters of the lineage of Star and he was known for his mighty name in the eternal chaotic world. As for He Xiu, it was also unknown what he would become tens of thousands of years later. In no time, Jian Wushuang brought He Xiu along with him and entered the base of the lineage of Star for real. They then walked around randomly amidst the group of buildings. Along the way, they came across quite a number of experts of disciples of the lineage of Star. When those people saw Jian Wushuang, they became extremely respectful. That's Hall Master Wushuang, the most impressive genius in the whole history of the lineage of Star. Although Hall Master Wushuang is not an almighty, he is still superior to almighties. On the real God ranking list, he is ranked first. Some older disciples were giving some introductions or bragging to the new disciples. Of course, they also noticed the existence of He Xiu. Who is that person? Hall Master Wushuang actually showed him the way personally. Even Star Palace disciples don't have the right for him to do that, right? This person should be Hall Master Wushuang's disciple. Disciple? At once, gazes which were filled with envy looked in the direction of He Xiu. With Jian Wushuang's current abilities and position, there were many disciples in the eternal chaotic world who were fighting to get him to be their master. However, they did not have the luck for that to happen. In spite of that, He Xiu still became his disciple. As such, everyone else was jealous of him. Jian Wushuang brought He Xiu with him and walked randomly around the lineage of Star. During the walk, he gave some simple explanations regarding some of the places of opportunities as well as their uses. After that, he brought He Xiu with him and came to the cave that Hall Master Yuan lived in. Jian Wushuang, how did it go with the divine pond of absolute beginning? Hall Master Yuan questioned straight away when he saw Jian Wushuang. Originally, it was very smooth. However, some changes occurred later on. Jian Wushuang gave a simple explanation as to what had happened to the divine pond of absolute beginning. Those dark powerhouses have actually set their eyes on the divine pond of absolute beginning? Hall Master Yuan's eyes squinted. What a pity. If you were given a longer period of time, your abilities would have risen greatly again. It's indeed a pity, Jian Wushuang laughed helplessly. This little kid beside you is. Hall Master Yuan glanced at He Xiu. This is a little kid who I came across during my journey. He is called He Xiu and he is now my registered disciple, Jian Wushuang said. Oh. Hall Master Yuan's eyes brightened. He knew about Jian Wushuang's abilities. For someone to catch the eyes of Jian Wushuang and be accepted as his disciple, even if he were just a registered disciple, he would definitely be not too bad. I am He Xiu. Greetings to Hall Master Yuan. He Xiu greeted him respectfully. This little kid's talents are not too bad and he has already comprehended a small bit of the power of destruction. As for abilities, he should be able to get into the top 50 of the Universe God ranking list, Jian Wushuang said. Top 50. Not bad, not bad, Hall Master Yuan was beaming with joy. It should be known that not just anyone could get into the Universe God ranking list. Although the lineage of Star had genius disciples in the Universe God ranking list, there were so few of them that it was pathetic. For example, when Jian Wushuang was still a Universe God, excluding Jian Wushuang himself, there were only 2 other geniuses who were in the Universe God ranking list in the lineage of Star. Moreover, the 2 people did not have very high rankings. As for He Xiu, he already possessed the fighting capabilities to get into the top 50 of the Universe God ranking list when he had only just entered the lineage of Star. After training for a period of time with the aid of the lineage of Star's resources, he would definitely be able to get into the top 10 of the Universe God ranking list. Although his future could not be compared to Jian Wushuang's, there was still a very high possibility of him becoming a top chaotic real god. Such a kind of genius was exactly what the lineage of Star had been looking for. The lineage of Star's rules are strict. Although you are Hall Master Wushuang's disciple, the rules cannot be changed. Hence, you are currently a normal disciple of the lineage of Star. In no time, there will be a battle to become a disciple of the Star Palace. Then, if you were to perform well, you could become a Star Palace disciple and obtain even more resources, Hall Master Yuan said. I understand, He Xiu nodded his head. Alright, let me first get someone to bring you around. Hall Master Yuan instructed an elder to bring He Xiu around personally at once. After He Xiu left, only Jian Wushuang and Hall Master Yuan remained in the cave. Hall Master Yuan, this time around, I obtained a special item from the outside. Can you help me take a look and tell me what it is? Jian Wushuang took out the jade sword. After Hall Master Yuan received the jade sword, he played with it in his hands for a while and his expression turned grave gradually. Jian Wushuang, where did you get this jade sword? Hall Master Yuan questioned. Upon seeing Hall Master Yuan's expression, Jian Wushuang understood that Hall Master Yuan already knew about the jade sword's origin. This jade sword was given to me by He Xia. Jian Wushuang gave an explanation regarding how the jade sword came about, as well as his experience in the Yuming Mountain. Sir God Dan Hong. It's actually Sir God Dan Hong's cave. Hall Master Yuan was shocked. Hall Master Yuan, could it be that you do not know about the appearance of Sir God Dan Hong's cave? Jian Wushuang was baffled. Of course I don't know. Hall Master Yuan shook his head and laughed. Jian Wushuang, since you have joined the Sanctuary Alliance, you probably do not have a good understanding of some matters in the higher-ups of the Sanctuary Alliance. The higher-ups of the Sanctuary Alliance refers to a group of almighties and there are social circles within them. For example, experts who travel alone have a social circle with other experts who travel alone. As for people like us who come from powerhouses, we have our own social circle as well. For Sir God Dan Hong's cave appearing in the Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, which is outside the sanctuaries, perhaps some of the almighties in the Sanctuary Alliance have already known about it. However, they will not spread this piece of news intentionally. Moreover, Sir God Lu Yin has definitely come by to talk to them. For you to be able to get this piece of news from Sir God Mad Dog, it's also thanks to luck. Jian Wushuang could not help laughing. Indeed. If not for Sir God Mad Dog, he would also not know about the Taiqing ancient panaceas. Sir God Mad Dog was an expert who traveled alone. Moreover, he was extremely strange. Hence, there were many ways for him to obtain information. Then this jade sword is. Jian Wushuang looked at Hall Master Yuan. If I am not wrong, this jade sword should be one of the keepsakes of the Blood Cloud Palace, Hall Master Yuan said earnestly. Chapter 1726, The First Era. Chapter 1726, The First Era. Blood Cloud Palace. Jian Wushuang was confused. Blood Cloud Palace is a special place in the 3rd lair, Hall Master Yuan explained. In the 8th lair, the 6th, 7th and 8th lair are ordinary. The biggest threat derives from Star Demon Clan. However, besides the 3 lairs, the remaining 5 lairs are battlefields left behind from the First Era or ancient times. Not only are there star demons, but there are also various dangers. Where there's danger, there are, of course, opportunities. Jian Wushuang was surprised. He knew the 8th lair to a certain extent. He also knew that besides the lair of Star Demon Clan, the 8 lairs were huge battlefields. The battlefields were segregated into 2 kinds. One was a battlefield from ancient times, which was of a higher level, also most mysterious. Among the 8 lairs, it was said that only the 1st lair was the true battlefield left from ancient times. As for the 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th lairs, they were battlefields left from the 1st era. The so-called 1st era was a new era after ancient times ended. Ancient God Emperor, who was supreme in ancient God tribe, was a super expert that was famous during the 1st era. However, the 1st era didn't last long because it was destroyed after a huge war. Then, the 2nd era started, which was the eternal chaotic world that Jian Wushuang was currently in. Ancient times, 1st era, 2nd era. 3 different eras, but ancient times was the strongest. The 1st era is far behind compared to ancient times, but it is also far stronger than the current eternal chaotic world, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. He knew that the universe that he was in, as they reproduced and as the time flew past, the overall power of cultivators was sliding down, and sliding down massively. In ancient times, it would have been prosperous. There were countless experts. Whichever one would be a supreme existence in the current era. There were even rumors in eternal chaotic world that said an emperor god was nothing back in ancient times. Jian Wushuang was once in the independent space. He had seen a painting of war in ancient times before Long Qi's master's coffin. The painting showed clearly how scary the experts in the war were. The 1st era, although it wasn't as strong as in ancient times, had also given birth to a 10-star ancient god superb expert like ancient god emperor. However, in eternal chaotic world, also during the 2nd era, forget about experts who could be compared favorably with those in ancient times, even experts like ancient god emperor didn't exist. The strongest in the current era was great emperor. It was widely acknowledged. It was because the ancient times and the 1st era were much stronger than the current era, the battlefield that they had left behind was so attractive to the experts in eternal chaotic world. Many almighties opted to wander in the 2nd to the 5th lair. It wasn't because they wanted to hunt the star demons but because they were going for the battlefield from the 1st era. They were going for the opportunities on the battlefield. In the 3rd lair, there were many special places. There are 4 most famous places and Blood Cloud Palace is one of them. Blood Cloud Palace was left behind by a strong great emperor in the 1st era. The great emperor could be in the top 3 among all expert of great emperor level in the 1st era. In the current eternal chaotic world, there shouldn't be anyone who could match him. In the Blood Cloud Palace that he left behind, there are great opportunities. However, Blood Cloud Palace will only open once in a very long time. Every time it opens, only one with a designated token can enter, and that's what this jade sword is. It is said that the token for Blood Cloud Palace are 10 jade swords. There is a total of 6 unearthed jade swords and there are 4 that have yet to be found. I never expected Sir God Dan Hong, who passed away so long ago, to have had one of the jade swords and been hiding it. Hall Master Yuan sighed. Jian Wushuang heard and he was complimenting in silence. From Hall Master Yuan's story, Jian Wushuang could tell the value of the jade sword. It was a palace left behind by a top great emperor from the 1st era. The value should be unbelievably high if even a great emperor would be tempted. Although the jade sword was merely a token, it was priceless. If he were to take it out, it might stir up a crazy fight among all almighties. Jian Wushuang had only received such a treasure out of sheer luck. Hall Master Yuan, when will be the next time Blood Cloud Palace opens? Jian Wushuang asked. I happen to know, but it's a pity as it is a long wait for you, Hall Master Yuan said. How long exactly? Jian Wushuang asked closely. 8 million years. Hall Master Yuan answered. Jian Wushuang was shocked. Ever since he was born and had started cultivation, it had only been tens of thousands of years. the next opening would be another 8 million years. Maybe to other almighties, 8 million years was nothing, as many almighties could live for very long, far longer than 8 million years. However, to Jian Wushuang, it was really a long wait. Jian Wushuang, although you can't use the jade sword for now, it is priceless. Keep it carefully. Who knows when you might need to use it, Hall Master Yuan said. Jian Wushuang nodded faintly. He then put the jade sword in his Qian Kun ring and intentionally put it in an obvious spot. After Jian Wushuang left from Hall Master Yuan's place, he returned to his sword star. In the secret room, Jian Wushuang sat down. There was a jade bottle floating in front of his face. In the jade bottle, there were elixirs that make one's mouth water. There was a total of 9. Jian Wushuang poured one Taiqing ancient panacea out from the bottle. He then consumed it without hesitation. The moment the elixir entered his body, it instantly turned into billowing divine power that Jian Wushuang absorbed and transformed. The speed of absorption and transformation was shockingly fast. 3 days later, in Jian Wushuang's body, the 89th drop of ultimate divine power droplets precipitated and he expended less than half of the divine power in the Taiqing ancient panacea. Taiqing ancient panacea lives up to its name. This elixir is so efficient. Jian Wushuang was beaming with joy. With less than half the elixir, he had already precipitated the 89th drop of ultimate divine power droplet. If he were to absorb the Taiqing ancient panacea fully, Jian Wushuang reckoned he should be able to precipitate the 90th ultimate divine power droplet. And, he had a total of 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas. Although it is said that it will be more difficult in the later stages of precipitating ultimate divine power droplets, I have 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas. Even if I can't reach the extreme limit of my divine power, I reckon I shouldn't be too far away from it. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. With anticipation, he continued to absorb the elixir. Chapter 1727, Made a Move. Chapter 1727, Made a Move. In a lofty, black divine hall in a vast dark land. Under the protection of many guards which were covered in dim light, a black-robed figure knelt down respectfully and handed a token over. Lord, this is the assassination plan for Jian Wushuang. If the plan is carried out, the success rate will definitely be higher than 90%, the black-robed figure said respectfully. The lofty, dark divine hall became quiet for a long time. Finally, this plan will expose quite a number of things. However, if we are able to kill Jian Wushuang, it will be worth it. Go ahead. A gloomy and hoarse voice could be heard from all directions. It was obvious that the Lord had already approved of the plan. The black-robed figure was extremely delighted and he started to put the plan into effect. For the 8 layers, the lower the number of the layer, the more dangerous it was. For the first layer to the 5th layer, only almighties dared to travel there. As for the 6th layer, normally, real gods traveled there. However, for real gods who dared to travel in the 6th layer, they would possess fighting capabilities that allowed them to get into the real god ranking list at the very least. Just then, at the core region of the 6th layer, an emaciated figure which was covered in a crimson robe was hidden in the void. Under the crimson hood, a pair of strange gray eyes were revealed and they were looking at the front. At the end of his sight, there was a figure. It was a handsome man who wore a loose and long robe. He was moving forward slowly. His expression was cold and his eyes looked around the surroundings from time to time. He was extremely vigilant. However, although the handsome man was extremely vigilant, he did not notice the crimson-robed man who was behind him. That's Lei Chao of the lineage of Star. He is only ranked 27th in the real god ranking list. However, he still dares to travel in the core region of the 6th layer alone. He is really quite daring. However, it's a pity that you are someone from the lineage of Star. Moreover, your relationship with Jian Wushuang is not too bad. Hence, I can only say that I'm sorry. While wearing a cold smile, the crimson-robed man approached Lei Chao slowly. in a secret room in the Sword Star of the lineage of Star. Jian Wushuang had sat down with his legs crossed to train for 3 months. During the 3 months, he had completely absorbed the divine power in the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas. After absorbing all the divine power completely, Jian Wushuang had a puzzled expression. In his body, there were ultimate divine power water droplets floating about. By counting them, there was a total of 90 droplets of ultimate divine power. That's right. There were 99 droplets and he was only 1 droplet away from the 100 ultimate divine power water droplets needed to make a breakthrough to stage 3 ultimate real God. Moreover, for the last droplet, he had accumulated quite a great portion of it and only a small portion was left. It was just a little bit more. He was just 1 step away from precipitating the 100th droplet of ultimate divine power. In the end, it is still lacking slightly, Jian Wushuang murmured. Although he felt that it was a pity, he was not too concerned. After all, the effects of the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas had already exceeded his expectations. The current him only lacked a small portion of divine power. For this small portion of divine power, he did not need any opportunities. By just relying on his own training or absorbing the demon cores that he had obtained back then, he would probably be able to make a breakthrough. 1,000 years. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly and his eyes glowed brilliantly. For the current him, by relying on the Hongjun golden swords as well as the many unique skills and secret skills of the ancient god, he could gain a firm foothold among the Sur gods and he was very close to the top. However, if he were able to take another step forward and achieve stage 3 ultimate real god, his divine power and body would achieve the level of an emperor god. By then, his abilities as a whole would rise greatly. I cannot rush. I must take it slow and go with the flow. Jian Wushuang laughed. After that, he walked out of the secret room. After walking out of the secret room, Jian Wushuang got the news that Elder Wu Yang had come. Moreover, he had also been waiting for him in the Sword Star for quite a few days. Within a lofty hall. Elder Wu Yang, Jian Wushuang wore a smile and walked toward Elder Wu Yang. Hall Master Wushuang, Elder Wu Yang was filled with respect. However, he also had mixed feelings. It should be known that thousands of years ago, he had invited Jian Wushuang to help them to hunt down real god Shiju. As for Jian Wushuang, after he had obtained the token of the Fairy Palace's legacy from real god Shiju, he joined the Sanctuary Alliance officially. After that, in a short thousands of years, he had risen greatly. To date, Jian Wushuang could compete against an almighty and he was one of the hall masters of the lineage of Star. Hence, Jian Wushuang was an existence that he looked up to. Elder Wu Yang, since you have come to look for me, is there something wrong? Jian Wushuang questioned while laughing. There's a matter and it is related to you, Elder Wu Yang said. Oh. Jian Wushuang's expression changed. It's like this. A few days ago, someone from the Parting Hatred Island sent a message over saying that a cultivator from the lineage of Star had been captured by them after killing their disciples. At present, she is being imprisoned in the Parting Hatred Island. After taking into account the fact that she is from the lineage of Star, they did not kill her on the spot. Instead, they wanted to have a discussion with the lineage of Star with regards to how to resolve the problem, Elder Wu Yang said. Just like that. Jian Wushuang had a perplexed expression. This should be a small matter that was too insignificant to mention. Hence, wouldn't it be insufficient to make him feel alarmed? Could it be that the cultivator is someone who I know? Jian Wushuang questioned. That's right. She's called Qiu Yu and she is your maid, Elder Wu Yang said. Jian Wushuang's expression changed at once. Qiu Yu. She was the housekeeper of the Sword Star. As Jian Wushuang had always been traveling outside, Qiu Yu had been in charge of taking care of the Sword Star. Qiu Yu had always been loyal to Jian Wushuang. As such, Jian Wushuang was not stingy and he had given her quite a lot of training resources. Moreover, not long ago, Qiu Yu had gone out to train as she had encountered a bottleneck and, to date, she had still not returned. However, who could have known that Qiu Yu had actually been captured by the Parting Hatred Island? Elder Wu Yang, what is the background of the Parting Hatred Island? Jian Wushuang questioned. He had some understanding of some extremely powerful big powerhouses and big sects within the Sanctuary Alliance. However, he had never heard of the Parting Hatred Island. The Parting Hatred Island is a powerhouse within the Purple Moon Sanctuary. However, it is not considered a big powerhouse. Within the Parting Hatred Island, there is not even one almighty and it cannot be compared to the lineage of Star, Elder Wu Yang said. However, the Parting Hatred Island is not in the Star Land. Moreover, Qiu Yu who has been captured is not a disciple of the lineage of Star. Instead, she is a normal cultivator. Thus, the Parting Hatred Island had the guts to capture her and they even sent a message over saying that they will give her a small punishment. Jian Wushuang understood. If it were a disciple of the lineage of Star or a genius disciple of the Star Palace, the Parting Hatred Island would not have the guts to punish him. However, Qiu Yu was merely a maid and her position was considered extremely low in the lineage of Star. Therefore, the Parting Hatred Island naturally dared to punish her. Elder Wu Yang, did you find out why Qiu Yu wanted to kill the disciples of the Parting Hatred Island? Jian Wushuang questioned. I have found out about it. It's because of the fact that a universe god in the Parting Hatred Island is her sworn enemy. She once had an older brother who died at the hands of that universe god in the Parting Hatred Island. As such, Qiu Yu took action against them. However, it's a pity that she was captured by the experts of the Parting Hatred Island before she was able to kill the universe god, Elder Wu Yang said. Chapter 1728, Parting Hatred Island. Chapter 1728, Parting Hatred Island. I see, Jian Wushuang understood, this girl, why didn't she tell me she was in trouble? Qiu Yu was Jian Wushuang's maidservant and she had Jian Wushuang's communication token. During the time she was training, Jian Wushuang would send her messages to ask about her progress occasionally. Qiu Yu could totally send him a message about what happened or just use his name when she was caught in Parting Hatred Island. Then, Parting Hatred Island wouldn't dare to do anything. However, Qiu Yu didn't. She had only said that she was from lineage of Star. Elder Wu Yang, please send a message to Parting Hatred Island. Tell them that lineage of Star will send an expert over to discuss it. Tell them to not touch a single strand of Qiu Yu's hair before the expert from lineage of Star arrive, Jian Wushuang said. Alright. As long as we of lineage of Star command it, Parting Hatred Island won't have the guts to lay a finger on Qiu Yu, Elder Wu Yang smiled. Oh yeah, why don't I send a deacon elderly over to take care of this? Or I'll head over myself. It's alright, Jian Wushuang shook his head, I'll go. You'll go. Elder Wu Yang stared. Parting Hatred Island wasn't a great force within Purple Moon Sanctuary. They were merely had two chaotic real gods. Lineage of Star could send any deacon elderly over and bring Qiu Yu back easily. Jian Wushuang was in such a distinguished position. Go and send the message. I'll depart now. Jian Wushuang didn't delay but departed in the direction of the Parting Hatred Island sect. On the other hand, Elder Wu Yang sent a message to Parting Hatred Island as instructed by Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang only took a few days' time to reach Parting Hatred Island via wormhole. This is Parting Hatred Island? Jian Wushuang overlooked a huge island covered by a formation. Even though it was only a second-grade force in the 10 sanctuaries, the sect looked quite dignified. Jian Wushuang's body turned illusionary and appeared before Parting Hatred Island's entrance. There were a few disciples guarding at the entrance. Please report to your higher-ups that Jian Wushuang from Lineage of Star is here to visit, Jian Wushuang smiled. Please hang on a moment, the registered disciples of Parting Hatred Island were only universe gods. They weren't experienced and they had never heard of Jian Wushuang's name. However, they should be able to tell that Jian Wushuang was a real god. As a real god came to visit personally, they couldn't behave sloppily and immediately went into the island to report. Jian Wushuang wasn't in a hurry and was waiting patiently at the entrance. With his power, he could totally barge into Parting Hatred Island and bring Qiu Yu away forcibly. The experts in Parting Hatred Island definitely wouldn't dare to say a word. After all, Jian Wushuang was from Lineage of Star and he had to keep Lineage of Star's reputation and appearance. Lineage of Star wasn't barbaric like Soaring Heaven King Palace. In Parting Hatred Island, an elderly in a red robe was casually walking around. "Greetings, Elder," the registered disciple who walked past bowed politely at him. The elderly in a red robe nodded faintly and he was happy. Just then, the disciple who came in to report sped past. When he saw the elderly in a red robe, he quickly moved over. "Elder Dong, there's a mister outside who said that he is here to visit," the disciple was polite. "Mister?" The elderly in a red robe looked at the disciple. "He is a real god and he said that he is from Lineage of Star. His name is Jian Wushuang, I think," the disciple said. "Who, you said?" At first, the elderly in a red robe was very calm but his eyes suddenly shot open and his voice became excited. "Are you sure you didn't hear wrongly? Is he really Jian Wushuang?" "Yes, I'm sure," the disciple was shocked but he replied determinedly. The elderly in a red robe immediately gasped a breath of cold air and muttered, "There are countless cultivators in eternal chaotic world and there are also many named Jian Wushuang. However, a Jian Wushuang from Lineage of Star, there's only one. It's that monster." The elderly in a red robe looked terrified. "Quick, follow me to welcome him." "Yes," the disciples immediately nodded. "Hold on," the elderly in a red robe suddenly paused. "Wait here. Let me inform the island master. We will all go to welcome him together when island master and the rest come." The elderly in a red robe knew clearly how big of a figure Jian Wushuang was. He had the fighting power of an almighty. Such a super expert had come to visit Parting Hatred Island, it was simply bringing radiance to their humble sect. He, of course, couldn't welcome such a great expert alone. As the elderly in a red robe reported the news, the entire Parting Hatred Island shook. The master of Parting Hatred Island, including the 3 vice masters and a bunch of experts on the island, came to welcome him all together. Outside the island, Jian Wushuang saw a huge crowd walking over after waiting for a while. There were at least 20 to 30 of them and they were all real gods. The one leading them was, of course, the master of Parting Hatred Island. Such a big crowd, Jian Wushuang smiled but he wasn't surprised. The crowd came before Jian Wushuang very quickly. "Master of Parting Hatred Island greets Mr. Jian Wushuang," the master of Parting Hatred Island bowed politely. The real gods behind him greeted and bowed at Jian Wushuang politely to show their respect. "You are too courteous," Jian Wushuang smiled. "Mr. Jian Wushuang, follow me into the island and we can talk," the master of Parting Hatred Island invited. Jian Wushuang nodded. Then, he entered Parting Hatred Island under the lead of the master of Parting Hatred Island himself. As they walked in, the experts in Parting Hatred Island lifted their head to steal glances at Jian Wushuang. There was excitement and reverence in their eyes. As for Jian Wushuang, they had heard long ago that he had fought with Soaring Heaven King Palace in the 8th lair and they had suffered a great loss. He had even inflicted a severe injury on Sir God Qianlan from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Besides, during the battle, Jian Wushuang killed many top chaotic real gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace. To Parting Hatred Island, any top chaotic real god wasn't one that they could offend easily. However, Jian Wushuang had massacred top chaotic real gods like he was slaughtering chickens. Such a superb existence could destroy Parting Hatred Island countless times with a wave. Very soon, Jian Wushuang arrived in the discussion hall of Parting Hatred Island. At the highest position of the hall, he sat side by side with the master of Parting Hatred Island. The master of Parting Hatred Island might even be slightly lower. "Mr. Jian Wushuang, I wonder what's the purpose of your visit to Parting Hatred Island?" The master of Parting Hatred Island asked politely. I really came for a purpose, Jian Wushuang smiled. Not long ago, there was someone from lineage of Star that killed a few disciples of Parting Hatred Island. Now, she is held by the experts of Parting Hatred Island and imprisoned in Parting Hatred Island. I came here today, for her. Jian Wushuang expressed his intention straightforwardly. Chapter 1729, Jian Wushuang's Maid. Chapter 1729, Jian Wushuang's Maid. After knowing Jian Wushuang's objective for coming, the experts in the Parting Hatred Island had puzzled expressions. How can I not know that my Parting Hatred Island imprisoned someone from the lineage of Star? Elder Li Yun, what's going on? The Parting Hatred Island master's eyes turned cold and he looked at the red-robed old man known as Li Yun. Although he was the island master, he had left most of the small matters in the Parting Hatred Island to Li Yun. For example, he indeed had no idea of the matter this time around. Island Master, there is indeed such a matter. However, I did an investigation previously. That woman is merely a normal maid of the lineage of Star. However, she has killed quite a number of the Parting Hatred Island's disciples. Hence, I got people to capture her and I also sent a message to the lineage of Star to discuss this matter together. Li Yun broke out in a cold sweat. Previously, he had gotten the news that an expert from the lineage of Star would come over to discuss about this matter. However, he totally did not expect that the person who would come from the lineage of Star would be Jian Wushuang. That woman is a maid under me. Moreover, she is a maid who I like the most, Jian Wushuang said bluntly. Upon hearing that, the expressions of many experts of the Parting Hatred Island as well Li Yun changed greatly. They could not care less if it were a normal maid from the lineage of Star. However, what if it were Jian Wushuang's maid? Moreover, if it was a maid who he liked the most, then, it would be different. Lord Jian Wushuang. The Parting Hatred Island master stood up and said straight away, Lord, please forgive us for our crime. The Parting Hatred Island did not know about the relationship between that woman and the Lord in advance. If I'd known, even if I were able to pluck up even more courage, I would definitely not dare to make things difficult for her. Yes, my lord. Back then, when we captured that woman, she only said that she was a maid of the lineage of Star and she did not reveal her relationship to you, Li Yun said immediately. For this matter, they indeed had no idea about it. It's all right. Jian Wushuang waved his hands, please bring her over first. Get down to it right away, the Parting Hatred Island master shot a glance toward Li Yun. Understood, Li Yun left immediately. Lord Jian Wushuang, for this matter, the Parting Hatred Island master still wanted to say something. Let's continue talking after she comes, Jian Wushuang said indifferently. Upon seeing that, the Parting Hatred Island master stopped speaking and he could only wait quietly at his position. Within the Parting Hatred Island, there was a lofty palace. The palace was the law enforcement hall of the Parting Hatred Island. For an expert or disciple who had committed a crime within the Parting Hatred Island or had caused some trouble outside, he would be sent to the law enforcement hall for his punishment. In a secret room in the inner part of the law enforcement hall. At the center of the secret room was a seal. Within the seal, a beautiful woman with a great figure was sitting down with her legs crossed. The beautiful woman was Jian Wushuang's maid, Qiu Yu. At present, Qiu Yu's expression was a bit pale and her aura was weak. She was in quite a miserable state. In front of the seal, there was a chair. In the chair sat a young man who wore a luxurious long robe with a jade-like face and one of his legs was stuck over the other. As he looked at Qiu Yu, who was inside the seal, his eyes were filled with relish. Hee, I did not expect that piece of trash who died back then to have such a good little sister. Not only are you pretty, your talents are also not too bad. However, it's a pity that you are still a bit lacking. If you were a bit stronger, you might have been able to take revenge for that trashy brother of yours. Qiu Yu's icy cold eyes were staring at the young man and she was filled with dissatisfaction. Just a bit more. Just a bit more and she would have been able to kill the person in front of her and gotten revenge for her brother. Why? Are you dissatisfied? The young man laughed evilly. No matter how dissatisfied you are, it's useless. You will never have a chance again. Although you are someone from the lineage of Star, you are still a normal maid in the end. Since your position is too low, the lineage of Star will absolutely not care about your fate. The Parting Hatred Island has merely sent the lineage of Star a message to find a way out of their situation. After that, even if the Parting Hatred Island were to kill you, the lineage of Star would not say anything. Hence, you're dead. Moreover, I would kill you personally. You would look on as I stab my saber into your heart. There would not be any room for you to struggle. The young man's voice echoed within the secret room repeatedly. Upon hearing that, Chiu Yu, who was in the seal, laughed coldly and her eyes were filled with disdain. Although she was currently captured alive by the Parting Hatred Island, she knew that the Parting Hatred Island would definitely not kill her. The reason being that her master was Jian Wushuang. With such an identity, the lineage of Star would absolutely not leave her alone. Why? Even though you are already in such a situation, do you think that you will be able to continue living? The young man swept his eyes over Chiu Yu with ridicule. However, just then, the big door of the secret room opened abruptly. After that, escorted by some disciples, the red-robed old man, Li Yun, walked inside anxiously. Elder Li Yun, why have you come? The young man stood up immediately and revealed a friendly smile. He was completely different from before. Upon seeing the young man in front, Li Yun became filled with anger and he swung his hand fiercely. Slap! A clear, melodious sound of a slap could be heard. The young man spit out a mouthful of blood at once and his body was sent flying ruthlessly. Damn little kid! Li Yun scolded with a low voice. He was too lazy to take another glance at that young man and he walked straight to the front of the seal. The flames of fury that Li Yun originally had became non-existent and he revealed a gentle smile. Miss Chiu Yu, please leave with me. Where are we going? Chiu Yu asked. To the big hall. Lord Jian Wushuang is waiting for you there, Li Yun said. Master? Chiu Yu's body shook at once. Master has actually come himself? In no time, Li Yun got rid of the seal and showed Chiu Yu to the big hall. At the same time, he looked at the astonished young man who was hiding at the corner of the wall again. Mo Tao, follow us as well. This matter happened because of you. Now that you have caused trouble, don't think that we will let you off with just a slap. Before the young man Mo Tan could even say anything, he was taken away by two disciples of the Parting Hatred Island forcibly and they headed to the big hall together. In the big hall, Jian Wushuang and the Parting Hatred Island master were sitting at its highest point and they were looking at Chiu Yu, Mo Tao and the few people who walked in. Master. Chiu Yu greeted Jian Wushuang immediately and she had mixed feelings. She did not send a rescue message to Jian Wushuang at the start as she did not want to disturb him. After all, she was just a lowly maid. Moreover, she had merely provoked the Parting Hatred sect and it was a small matter that was too insignificant to be brought up. Hence, it could be resolved with the lineage of stars showing themselves. However, Chiu Yu did not expect Jian Wushuang to come personally. As Jian Wushuang looked at Chiu Yu, his eyes turned grave. It was not because of the fact that he had seen Chiu Yu's injuries. Instead, it was because of the fact that he had seen the aura that she was emitting. Her aura had achieved the level of a real god. Chapter 1730, Ask for Help. Chapter 1730, Ask for Help. Breakthrough? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Previously, Chiu Yu went out for training in order to break through and become real god. Then, she really broke through. In actual fact, it was fortunate that Chiu Yu broke through and became a real god and that Parting Hatred Island had scruples. If Chiu Yu were to only be a universe god and as she was only a maidservant, Parting Hatred Island would have killed her long ago. There's an elixir here. Eat it and rest up by the side. Jian Wushuang waved and passed her an elixir. The elixir wasn't cheap and it was for a Sir God to recover from injury. Qiu Yu took the elixir and consumed it immediately. Then, she walked to the side obediently. There were immediately experts from Parting Hatred Island who gave her a seat. Master of Parting Hatred Island, how many of your disciples did my maidservant kill? Jian Wushuang asked casually. Li Yun, the master of Parting Hatred Island, looked at Li Yun. Island master, there were 6 disciples from Parting Hatred Island that had died at the hands of the lady. However, they were all ordinary disciples and they were all universe gods, Li Yun answered. 6 deaths, Jian Wushuang heard and he took out a Qian Kun ring. I am not strict in discipline. There are treasures in Qian Kun ring. Consider it an apology to Parting Hatred Island. How could we accept your apology? The master of Parting Hatred Island stood up hastily but didn't dare to take the Qian Kun ring. I told you to take it. Just take it, Jian Wushuang said coldly. Yes, the master of Parting Hatred Island nodded politely as he accepted the Qian Kun ring. However, with no surprise. I, Jian Wushuang, have always been a clear-cut person. My maidservant killed your men in Parting Hatred Island and I should apologize. Now that I have apologized, we should talk about the resentment between my maidservant and the disciples of Parting Hatred Island. Jian Wushuang's face grew cold. Every expert of Parting Hatred Island at the scene was stunned. They knew that Jian Wushuang wouldn't just let it slip and take the initiative to apologize. They guessed it. Then, Jian Wushuang wanted to clear the debt. Mr. Jian Wushuang, Mo Tao is here. You can go ahead and bring him along, the master of Parting Hatred Island said. The surrounding experts of Parting Hatred Island didn't hesitate either. At such a crucial moment, pushing their disciple just like that might not be appropriate. However, regardless of where one was in the world, they look at one's power. Jian Wushuang's power was proven. Forget about taking away one disciple who was only a universe god. Even if you were to kill 2 real gods on the spot, he definitely wouldn't dare to utter a single word. It's unnecessary for me to bring him straight away. It is merely a fight between the juniors. Lineage of Star isn't as barbaric as Soaring Heaven King Palace, Jian Wushuang smiled. How about this? As the 2 of them harbor deep hatred against one another, let them fight a life and death battle in Parting Hatred Island. Life and death battle. The experts in Parting Hatred Island were stunned. A life and death battle must be determined by life and death. As for who will be dead and who will be alive, that depends on their capabilities. Although Qiu Yu is my maidservant, I will have nothing to say, but I'd leave if she were to die at the hands of your disciple in Parting Hatred Island, Jian Wushuang said. I understand. Let's do as Mr. has suggested, the master of Parting Hatred Island nodded with a smile. However, Mo Tao, who was lying prostrate on the ground, was terrified. He shouted, No, no, Island Master. You can't let me fight a life and death battle with her. I am only a universe god, but she already broke through and became real god. This is unfair. This is an unfair battle. Mo Tao roared, but the surrounding crowd didn't do anything. They looked at him with pity. Unfair? Yes, the battle was really unfair. So what? In the world, where was absolute fairness? Everything was decided with power. Plus, Jian Wushuang was nice enough to give him a chance. If it was someone else, he would have been killed with one slap. The life and death battle started before long. Parting Hatred Island was at a disadvantageous position in the battle after all. So, the higher up in Parting Hatred Island didn't breathe a word of it to anyone, nor did many disciples watch the battle. The end result was that naturally there was no suspense. Qiu Yu's injury recovered after consuming the elixir that Jian Wushuang had given. She took out about 70% of her power. As for Mo Tao, he was only an ordinary universe god in the 3rd heaven, so he was naturally killed easily. When the dispute was settled, Mr. Jian Wushuang, I have already arranged a banquet for you. Would you like to stay and have a drink? The master of Parting Hatred Island was polite. Banquet? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. In front of the experts in Parting Hatred Island, she had killed the disciple of Parting Hatred Island. Not only did the experts on Parting Hatred Island not get angry, they were also courteous to him. They had even prepared a banquet for him. They obviously wanted to curry favor with him. Power, Jian Wushuang sighed. He knew clearly that it was because of his power. At first, Jian Wushuang didn't intend to reject him, but suddenly. Jian Wushuang, hurry up and come back. Something happened. Hall Master Yuan sent an urgent message. Jian Wushuang's face instantly grew grave. I appreciate Island Master's kindness, but I have other matters to attend to and I shall not stay back. Jian Wushuang said, then he didn't bother with the experts on Parting Hatred Island and he immediately took Chiao Yu with him and left. They didn't talk much on the way and sped through the journey. Jian Wushuang arrived at Lineage of Star very soon. After he settled Chiao Yu, Jian Wushuang immediately came to Hall Master Yuan's cave dwelling. He saw Hall Master Yuan as well as Hall Master Gu Xian. Hall Master Yuan, Hall Master Gu Xian, what happened? Jian Wushuang asked. From the message that Hall Master Yuan sent, he could tell that there must be something major happening in Lineage of Star. Jian Wushuang, go through the message in this token. Hall Master Yuan passed Jian Wushuang a token. Jian Wushuang took it and briefly skimmed through it. Then, his eyes shot wide open. The message in the token was a message asking for help. The message was sent by the one who had been wandering in the 6th lair all this while. Lei Chao. Back then, Lei Chao had guided Jian Wushuang to Lineage of Star personally. He had also taken care of Jian Wushuang when Jian Wushuang wasn't that powerful. Lei Chao was asking for help. Lei Chao, he is stuck in Buddhist Demon Sea. Jian Wushuang looked terrified. He was familiar with the 8th lair to a certain extent. He knew that there were places that were more dangerous and required more attention in every lair. Just like the dark regions in the 8th lair and the dark ravine in the 7th lair. He had looked into them carefully before. As for the 6th lair, he knew quite a bit about it. In the core of the 6th lair, even an expert on Real God ranking list stood the possibility of passing when he wandered there. Besides, there were a few places that were full of danger that a real god definitely would die in if he barged in. Even to an almighty, it was dangerous. Among the few places, the one with the greatest reputation was Buddhist Demon Sea. Chapter 1731, The Fish Has Taken the Bait. Chapter 1731, The Fish Has Taken the Bait. The Buddhist Demon Sea was a forbidden area to real gods. Even among almighties, normal almighties would not dare to go in there easily. It was said that even emperor gods could be killed in the deepest part of the Buddhist Demon Sea. How can that be? Lei Chao has been traveling the 6th lair for so long and it is not as if he does not know about the Buddhist Demon Sea. Why has he gone into the Buddhist Demon Sea? Jian Wushuang said while frowning. Under normal circumstances, Lei Chao would definitely not go to the Buddhist Demon Sea. However, Lei Chao is being chased by someone and he had no choice but to go in, Hall Master Yuan said. He is being chased by someone. Jian Wushuang's expression changed. Who is it? Old freak Sui Gu, an extremely powerful Sir God expert who is very ruthless, Hall Master Gu Xian said. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, old freak Sui Gu fought with the Lineage of Star head-on. At that time, Hall Master Shi Yun and I teamed up to go after him and he almost died by our hands. Ever since that battle, this old bastard remained silent and laid low and he never appeared again. However, who could expect that when he reappeared again, it would actually be in the 6th lair. Moreover, he came across Lei Chao by coincidence. If not for Lei Chao using the secret skill of Star Palace and the secret skill of Dragon Blood to the best of his abilities, there would probably not be an opportunity for him to escape into the Buddhist Demon Sea. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned grave. He had never heard of the old freak Sui Gu before. However, at that time, it was highly possible that Lei Chao had escaped into the Buddhist demon sea under his compulsion. After all, some Sur gods with weaker abilities would travel deep inside the sixth lair, and old freak Sui Gu was probably one of them. Moreover, it just so happened that he had a huge grudge against the lineage of Star. The Buddhist demon sea is unusually dangerous. With Lei Chao's abilities, under a condition where he has lost his 2 trump cards, secret skill of Star Palace and secret skill of Dragon Blood, there is a very low possibility of him surviving. However, fortunately, the space and time of the Buddhist demon sea are not completely separated from the outside world. Hence, he can ask for help and the lineage of Star can still make it in time to save him, Hall Master Yuan said. Jian Wushuang heaved a sigh of relief. It was lucky that Lei Chao was not killed by old freak Sui Gu straight away. Although he had entered the Buddhist demon sea, there was still a glimmer of hope for him. Lei Chao is an expert of the lineage of Star and he has contributed greatly to the lineage of Star. Since there is a glimmer of hope, the lineage of Star will definitely do its best to save him. However, it's a pity that the palace master has secluded himself in training for the past few years as he is preparing for something and he cannot show himself. Presently, Hall Master Shi Yun is traveling deep inside the 5th lair and he is unable to come out at such short notice. Thus, I can only get the 2 of you to go there, Hall Master Yuan said. Leave it to us, Hall Master Gu Xian nodded her head. Back then, Lei Chao took very good care of me. Since something bad has happened to him now, I will do my best to rescue him, Jian Wushuang said earnestly. Go ahead. Remember to be extremely careful, Hall Master Yuan warned. Jian Wushuang and Hall Master Gu Xian looked at each other. After that, both of them set off immediately. The 2 of them did not lose any time. After entering the 6th lair, they traveled speedily and arrived outside the Buddhist demon sea in the shortest possible time. This is the Buddhist demon sea. Jian Wushuang was looking at a mysterious sea area which was completely shrouded in black and dense fog in front of him. Even though he had never entered the sea area, by just looking from the outside, Jian Wushuang felt terrified. Let's go in. Hall Master Gu Xian said. Jian Wushuang did not hesitate and he entered the sea area with Hall Master Gu Xian right away. After entering the sea area, Jian Wushuang felt a strong corrosive power rushing toward him immediately. The corrosive power came from the black, dense fog which filled the air. What a strong corrosive power! Jian Wushuang revealed a shocked expression. He could feel how unreasonable the corrosive power was. Under such a corrosive power, a normal chaotic real god would probably not last very long and they would die. Even top chaotic real gods would probably be unable to last for a long period of time. Although Lei Chao was an expert of the real god ranking list who ranked above 20, he would probably die in at most 100 years' time if he were to continue staying in the Buddhist demon sea. Jian Wushuang, as you are only a real god, are you able to withstand this corrosive power? Hall Master Gu Xian questioned. It would not be a problem for 1,000 years. However, if it were any longer than that, it would be hard to say, Jian Wushuang said. Then let's make the best use of our time, Hall Master Gu Xian said. The 2 of them flew toward the front immediately. While flying, Jian Wushuang took out his transmission token. Lei Chao, Hall Master Gu Xian and I have arrived in the Buddhist demon sea. How are you now? Jian Wushuang questioned. Jian Wushuang, I'm sorry. Back then, I was unable to hurry back to participate in the banquet when you took on the role of a hall master. But now, I need you to come here to rescue me, Lei Chao was filled with regret. Let's not talk about that. How is your current situation? Roughly which direction are you in and how long can you last? Jian Wushuang asked quickly. I was chased down by old freak Sui Gu and I had no choice but to escape into the Buddhist demon sea. However, old freak Sui Gu also followed me in and I could only continue to run. Since I was running away madly, I also had no idea where exactly I was. I only know that the place that I am at is a triangular island that is extremely huge, Lei Chao said. A gigantic and triangular island? Jian Wushuang's eyes squinted and he looked at Hall Master Gu Xian who was beside him. Hall Master Gu Xian, do you know that the triangular island existed? I have no idea. Hall Master Gu Xian shook her head. The Buddhist demon sea is not normal, and among the whole sanctuary alliance, not many people have traveled inside before. Moreover, the terrain here is extremely peculiar and probably no one knows where that triangular island is. This is going to be troublesome. Jian Wushuang's expression turned ugly. This was the most troublesome. Both Hall Master Gu Xian and him knew that Lei Chao was trapped in the Buddhist demon sea. They also knew that he was in a triangular island. However, since the Buddhist demon sea was so huge, who knew where the triangular island was? Moreover, they were also not certain of its direction. There were also no authenticating objects with them. Hence, they could only rely on luck to find Lei Chao. The environment of the Buddhist demon sea is peculiar. Although Lei Chao did not say much, I predict that he will probably be unable to last for long. Hence, we need to find him in the shortest possible time. Therefore, Hall Master Gu Xian, shall we split up? Jian Wushuang suggested. Split up. Hall Master Gu Xian frowned. However, she still nodded her head. Indeed, if the two of us were to split up, there would be a higher chance of us finding him. However, it would be more dangerous. Jian Wushuang, you really have to be careful. You too. Jian Wushuang looked at Hall Master Gu Xian. After that, the both of them split up inside the Buddhist demon sea right away. Although they had split up, they were in contact with each other at all times. At the same time as Jian Wushuang and Hall Master Gu Xian entered the Buddhist demon sea, in the inner part of the Buddhist demon sea, a figure who was covered in a crimson robe revealed a pair of strange, gray eyes. Hee, the fish has taken the bait. Chapter 1732, Triangle Island. Chapter 1732, Triangle Island. Buddhist demon sea, at hidden void where four figures in black robes stood side by side. There was a deep voice that was heard under the black robe. Just got an update. Jian Wushuang has already entered Buddhist demon sea and Hall Master Gu Xian from lineage of Star came in too, but they parted ways. Someone will take care of Hall Master Gu Xian, we can ignore her. Our target is the one and only Jian Wushuang. Hee, in order to kill Jian Wushuang, Acheron Palace is liberal with money. The four of us normally take action alone, but they gathered us here together. Plus, they are only launching the first of the 4 killer attacks now. From what I can see, the higher-ups look too highly upon Jian Wushuang. Although he is really talented, his power is barely at the level of a Sir God's. It is unnecessary to make such a great troop to kill him. 4 killer attacks, and that is only the first, he might not be able to dodge, or there might even not be necessary for the first attack. With the existence of natural danger in Buddhist demon sea itself, it will be sufficient to kill Jian Wushuang. Hee, the four of us arranged to only be involved in the third attacks and above. I reckon we might not stand a chance to launch an attack. The four of them chatted casually. As they chatted, they were absolutely confident. Acheron Palace wouldn't take action. If they did, the other party would stand almost no chance at all to flee. Then, Acheron Palace put great attention on Jian Wushuang and planned it meticulously. They had even prepared 4 killer attacks. Jian Wushuang was doomed. In the boundless dark sea, Jian Wushuang continued to plunge forward slowly as he looked around while he kept his guard up. Buddhist demon sea is extremely dangerous to Sir Gods. Although Lei Chao was chased after by old monster Sui Gu and he ran to Buddhist demon sea helplessly, he definitely won't be too far in. He should still be at the border of Buddhist demon sea, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. Buddhist demon sea, there was a difference between open sea and inland sea. Inland sea was more dangerous compared to open sea. What I can do now is search along the open sea and hope that I can find him, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. As long as he was on the open sea, Jian Wushuang stood a chance to save Lei Chao. If Lei Chao were to be at the inland sea, Jian Wushuang had no way at all. Jian Wushuang continued to plunge as he spread his soul power. However, his soul power was greatly restricted in Buddhist Demon Sea and the coverage was less than 1/5 of his performance during his peak. Hence, the difficulty of searching had increased tremendously. 10 days after entering Buddhist Demon Sea. Swoosh! Jian Wushuang's body suddenly stopped. He saw a crimson figure in the sea region before him in his sights. It was the size of a human body with a pair of hands and legs. Its skin was crimson and there was an eye and a big mouth on its head. It was a star demon that could only be found in the 8th lair. However, the star demon in front of him and was obviously much stronger than any star demons that Jian Wushuang had ever seen. On its head, there were 4 horns. 4-horned star demon. A star demon comparable to a human Sir God. As Jian Wushuang saw the star demon, its crimson eye looked at Jian Wushuang directly. Human. With boundless murderous intention in the voice of the star demon, it instantly charged forward in the next moment. Then, there was a great rage that soared up. Jian Wushuang's face grew solemn. He knew that there were star demons in Buddhist Demon Sea and the power of the star demons were extremely strong overall. Such 4-horned star demon was common. Wow! The crimson light twinkled. Then, the 4-horned star demon suddenly appeared before Jian Wushuang. It waved its palm and clawed the sky. Not only the void was torn open, the dark sea underneath was greatly torn as well. Such intense speed, Jian Wushuang was surprised and he quickly retreated. The sharp claw came to nothing but it stirred up a violent storm and roaring waves in the sea below. Humph! Jian Wushuang humphed coldly, then the 2 Hong Jun golden swords appeared in front of him simultaneously and turned into 2 rays of golden flowing light that burst out. Swoosh! Swoosh! The ear-piercing, air-splitting noise spread. The 2 Hong Jun golden swords appeared before the 4-horned star demon and instantly hit the 4-horned star demon. The Hong Jun golden swords hit it brutally while 4-horned star demon swung its pair of arms with its all. Bang! 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 After the few clashes that only continued for 5 times, one of the 2 Hong Jun golden swords pierced the 4-horned star demon's head at the 6th hit. Jian Wushuang took a leap and came in front of the 4-horned star demon. He waved and collected the demon core into his Qian Kun ring. The 4-horned star demon should have just transformed not too long ago. Its power is comparable to the lowest level of Sir God, or maybe even lower. With my current power, it is quite easy to kill him, Jian Wushuang muttered. He wasn't like before. Among Sir Gods, he was definitely one of the stronger experts. However, the 4-horned star demons had reminded Jian Wushuang to be more cautious. The time flew past and 3 years passed in the blink on an eye. For 3 years, Jian Wushuang had continued to keep in contact with Lei Chao and Hall Master Gu Xian, but he had yet to find the triangle island that Lei Chao was at. They had no choice. Buddhist Demon Sea was extremely huge and merely the open sea itself was spacious. A Sir God might not be able to search through the entire region in 1,000 years. Jian Wushuang and Hall Master Gu Xian knew the rough direction which Lei Chao had entered Buddhist Demon Sea in and they got to minimize their search scope. However, it was still not easy to look for Lei Chao. In the boundless dark sea, Jian Wushuang was suddenly attracted by the miniature island in front of him. It was an ordinary island and it wasn't huge. In the 3 years of Jian Wushuang's search in Buddhist Demon Sea, he couldn't keep count of how many similar islands he had passed by. Any island that he had passed before didn't catch his attention, only this did. That was because Jian Wushuang saw a big hole in the middle of the island. The big hole was obviously caused by a hit of divine power, and most importantly, the time that it was formed wasn't too far back. Buddhist demons see, there is hardly anyone that comes in. It is even more impossible for there to be a battle. The hole on the island was definitely made when old monster Sui Gu chased after Lei Chao. Lei Chao is definitely near the island. Jian Wushuang was thrilled. He then started to search thoroughly near the island. The search continued for another 11 years. Finally, there was an extremely huge triangle island that appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. Found it. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists. Chapter 1733, Between Life and Death. Chapter 1733, Between Life and Death. In the vast, dark sea area, Jian Wushuang was floating amidst the dark, dense fog, and he was looking down at the gigantic triangular island in front of him. His expression turned grave slowly. He could see that the triangular island was engulfed by a dark storm. Within the dark storm, gusts of wind were blowing about like sharp blades, and the void was cut open like paper. Jian Wushuang also felt great danger from the dark storm. He then took out his token and sent a message to Lei Chao to ask him some questions. Lei Chao, I have already arrived at a triangular island. This island is engulfed in a dark storm. Are you inside this island? That's right. It's that place. Lei Chao replied immediately, I have been completely trapped by the dark storm and I dare not move about randomly. It's all right if I'm correct. Please wait inside. I will go in and find you. After speaking, Jian Wushuang approached the triangular island slowly. This dark storm, as Jian Wushuang looked at the dark storm in front of him, he did not dare to underestimate the heartless sharp blades which were blowing about in the slightest. All of a sudden, Jian Wushuang flipped his hands and a purple saber appeared in his hands. After that, he tossed the purple saber into the dark storm in front of him. A dark, sharp blade then headed to the purple saber and sliced it into fine powder instantly. What a strong power! That saber is a top universe god-level chaos unique treasure. However, it was destroyed instantly. With such frightening dark wind blades, although my body is strong, if I were to be caught in between a few dark wind blades at the same time, I would probably not end up in a good state, Jian Wushuang exclaimed in admiration. It was no wonder that Lei Chao was trapped within the dark storm and that he dared not walk around randomly. After all, the dark storm also posed a great threat to Almighties. However, although it was dangerous, in order to bring Lei Chao out, Jian Wushuang still walked into the dark storm. At a hidden void which was deep inside the dark storm, there were 4 black-robed figures. Jian Wushuang has come. Since he has come, he shall not think of leaving this place alive. It's about time for him to make a move. He's a top genius. However, it's a pity that he is about to die. The 4 black-robed figures were gasping at their location. However, the 4 faces under the black robes were not filled with sympathy at all. Instead, they were filled with cruelty and madness. In the dark storm, Jian Wushuang's right hand was holding his blood mountain sword and he was walking forward slowly. His eyes were filled with vigilance. Puff! All of a sudden, a sound that sounded like the void being ripped open could be heard. Jian Wushuang's eyes shrank and he swung the sword in his hands abruptly. A dark wind blade was repelled by Jian Wushuang's blood mountain sword head-on. Jian Wushuang did not stop moving and he continued to walk forward. The dark storm was still considered very stable and Jian Wushuang only needed to pay attention to the dark wind blades that appeared from his surroundings. As long as the dark wind blades were unable to touch him, he would not be in any danger. I wonder which part of the storm Lei Chao will be in, Jian Wushuang muttered. The dark storm had completely prevented him from using his soul power to check out the area. Hence, he did not know Lei Chao's current location and he could only search slowly. However, what Jian Wushuang did not know was that at the same time, within the dark storm, a ghost-like figure was hidden not too far away from his back. The black-robed figure was like a ghost. Ever since Jian Wushuang had entered the dark storm, he had been following Jian Wushuang closely. However, from the start to the end, Jian Wushuang did not notice his existence. Under the black robe, a pair of dark green eyes which had the will-o'-the-wisp dancing about them were staring at Jian Wushuang, who was in front persistently. She had also suppressed the aura in her body to its maximum, and she was just like the air. She was waiting. She was waiting for the best opportunity to strike. Puff! 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 All of a sudden, 3 soft sounds which broke the silence in the air could be heard from his surroundings. Jian Wushuang noticed them instantly, and with a wave of his hands, 3 sword essence struck the 3 dark wind blades which were heading toward him with lightning speed. The 3 dark wind blades were dispersed instantly. However, at that moment, the time is now. The eyes of the black-robed figure who had been following Jian Wushuang closely while hiding herself extremely well glowed with a shrill light, and she floated over like a ghost. Her speed was too fast. When Jian Wushuang had only just swung his sword to get rid of the 3 dark wind blades which approached him, the ghost-like figure had already appeared behind him. At the same time, a cold dagger appeared in her hands, and the dagger headed toward Jian Wushuang's head abruptly. It was a speed that was faster than all the speeds in the universe. At that moment, the space and time seemed to have completely stopped. Only the extremely cold dagger remained in the whole universe. It was too fast. The person who attacked was definitely a top expert who was proficient in assassination. Be it the opportunity to strike, the way of attacking, or speed, she was perfect in all of them. Although Jian Wushuang had been vigilant throughout, up until the moment that the ghost-like figure had appeared behind him and even attacked with her dagger, Jian Wushuang had still not reacted to it. Jian Wushuang, be careful! A cry which sounded like thunder echoed in Jian Wushuang's mind fiercely. Jian Wushuang's body trembled and he was terrified. At that moment, all the pores on his body expanded quickly and a special feeling appeared in Jian Wushuang's mind. Such a feeling was the feeling of life and death. He had felt the frightening feeling of danger which came from behind him. Although the frightening feeling of danger was not unprecedented, from the time that Jian Wushuang started training to present, he had felt it no more than 2 times. Jian Wushuang even had an illusion that he was about to die. He did his best to move his body in order to avoid the deadly blow behind him. Faster, faster. Even faster, even faster. Jian Wushuang was roaring crazily in his mind, and he did his best to move himself as much as possible. After all, the more he moved, the higher the chance of him surviving. Die! At that moment, the ghost-like figure who launched a surprise attack abruptly did not hide herself any longer. Her shocking murderous intent had completely locked onto Jian Wushuang, and the dagger in her hands, which was emitting an infinite amount of coldness, was getting closer and closer to Jian Wushuang's head. However, at that moment, all of a sudden, a gigantic tentacle came out from Jian Wushuang's back fiercely, and it struck the dagger with lightning speed straight away. As the dagger contained frightening power, it smashed the tentacle into pieces instantly. Moreover, it continued to head toward Jian Wushuang without any decrease in power. However, with the tentacle blocking for just an instant, Jian Wushuang had just managed to move his body. Swish! The dagger, which contained an infinite amount of murderous intent, brushed past Jian Wushuang's head, and the cold light which the dagger was emitting left a wound on Jian Wushuang's cheek, causing blood to flow out from it. Piss off! Jian Wushuang gave a loud cry, and the blood mountain sword in his hands released a shocking amount of power. It then attacked furiously, like a huge mountain which was hundreds of millions gene heavy. Chapter 1734, Coming After Me. Chapter 1734, Coming After Me. Retreat. The spiritual figure was very determined. He didn't hit his target and he immediately retreated. He was a killer hidden in the dark, an assassin. He wasn't used to fighting head-on. Want to run? There was a billowing murderous intention in Jian Wushuang's eyes. After the stroke failed to hit, there were immediately 2 rays of resplendent golden light that burst out. Hong Jun golden swords were like comets. They flew through the void and appeared behind the spiritual figure, then instantly pierced the body of the spiritual figure. However, it didn't touch any substantial form when it pierced and the spiritual figure vanished into thin air. Jian Wushuang looked around him and swept out his soul power, but he couldn't notice anyone. Such a brilliant hiding skill and assassination skill. Jian Wushuang clenched his hand as his face went solemn. It was obvious that the spiritual figure had been lurking behind him, but his soul power didn't notice him at all. His hiding skill was definitely very impressive. The assassination skill then really shocked Jian Wushuang. Ever since his cultivation, he had never seen such a terrifying assassination skill. Not only did he grasp the perfect timing, but also the dagger was too terrifying. King of Venomous Worms, luckily you took action in time. Otherwise, Jian Wushuang had a lingering fear. He knew clearly that King of Venomous Worms had reminded him just in time, and the tentacle that extended behind his back simultaneously was from King of Venomous Worms as well. If it wasn't because of the tentacle that delayed for a moment, Jian Wushuang wouldn't be able to dodge the attack of the dagger in time. I just happened to wake up. Luckily, it was in time, King of Venomous Worms said in Jian Wushuang's head. He sighed with emotion as he spoke. The earlier scene had been too dangerous. If King of Venomous Worms had woken up any later, Jian Wushuang would have died. Oh yeah, what was going on earlier? I could tell that he should be an almighty. Jian Wushuang, since when did you qualify for an almighty to assassinate you? King of Venomous Worms asked in surprise. When King of Venomous Worms had been asleep, Jian Wushuang had broken through and become a real god in ancient god sanctuary. It wasn't long since then, but when he woke up again, he had seen an almighty trying to kill Jian Wushuang. What an honor for an almighty to assassinate him. During the time when you slept, I received some opportunities and my power increased tremendously. Now, I have the fighting power of an almighty, Jian Wushuang said. Fighting power of an almighty? King of Venomous Worms was thrilled in excitement. Let's not talk about this first. My current situation is abnormal, Jian Wushuang said in a deep voice. King of Venomous Worms had noticed the surrounding void and the terrifying dark storm. In addition to the ambush by the Almighty earlier, Jian Wushuang was obviously in a bad situation. What's going on? King of Venomous Worms asked. What happened was, Jian Wushuang briefly told it the ins and outs of the story. Previously, I had thought it was only an accident that Lei Chao had gotten trapped in Buddhist Demon Sea. But from what it seems now, I'm afraid that isn't so. Jian Wushuang looked solemn. He wasn't stupid. On the contrary, he had been through tough experiences and struggled to climb up in the ocean of blood. When he had found out the news that Lei Chao was trapped in Buddhist Demon Sea, Jian Wushuang had found it strange, but he didn't bother much. But then, after the assassination, Jian Wushuang finally understood. He was almost certain that it wasn't an accident but a strategy, meticulously plotted. And, the person who framed him definitely wasn't Lei Chao. He was 80% only bait. Their true target was actually him. These people are specially coming after me. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. With such a meticulous plot they could arrange an almighty for an assassination. On top of that, the almighty's assassination skill was so terrifying. It was obvious that he was trying to kill him. Jian Wushuang, when I was in a deep sleep, which experts did you offend? The enemy's strategy isn't ordinary. King of Venomous Worms' voice grew serious. In eternal chaotic world, there's only a great force that crossed paths with me and wanted me dead. It is Soaring Heaven King Palace. However, although Soaring Heaven King Palace is strong, it is impossible for them to be so liberal with their funds, nor is it possible for them to scheme against me in Buddhist Demon Sea. They don't have the capability, Jian Wushuang muttered. Although Soaring Heaven King Palace was strong, they didn't have that many almighties. Plus, everyone was aware of the danger in Buddhist Demon Sea. If Soaring Heaven King Palace were to scheme against Jian Wushuang, they wouldn't opt to within Buddhist Demon Sea. The risk was too high. As it wasn't Soaring Heaven King Palace, the one who had the ability and had the intention to do so would be the hidden force of Eternal Chaotic World. Acheron Palace. What happened today is 99% likely to be Acheron Palace's doing. Jian Wushuang's face grew distressed. Acheron Palace was known for its bad name. Jian Wushuang harbored scruples about Acheron Palace as well. Acheron Palace wouldn't take action hastily. If they did, it would be almost impossible for them to miss the target. Then, Acheron Palace had launched an attack at him and it had been meticulously planned. They even used Lei Chao as the bait to lure him to Buddhist Demon Sea. Then, he was already in the trap that Acheron Palace set up. He was in a very bad place. King of Venomous Worms, as you completed your transformation and woke up, you should be able to help me, right? Jian Wushuang asked. Of course, a Plenilin's power is determined by the ancient god that it lives off. Due to your influence, my change is drastic and my attack power can be put to use as well, King of Venomous Worms said. That's great. Jian Wushuang fixed his gaze. As Acheron Palace took action against me, they definitely did thorough research on me. They definitely know some of my trump cards and they will have prepared accordingly. However, there are some trump cards that I have never shown anyone. These trump cards will be a crucial part of how I can escape this disaster. King of Venomous Worms, you are one of the trump cards I have now too. The two of us should fight against the people from Acheron Palace together. It's my honor, King of Venomous Worms replied. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and his gaze became sharp. He knew that he had fallen into the trap that Acheron Palace had plotted against him. As he was already there, it would be impossible for him to return by the same route. Even if he were to inform Hall Master Yuan and Hall Master Gu Xian about his situation, Hall Master Gu Xian was quite far away from the Triangle Island that he was on. He couldn't be there in time to back him up on such short notice. Hall Master Yuan couldn't help either. He had no choice. He could only fight head-on with the people from Acheron Palace. He could only rely on himself. As for if it was life or death, that depended on his capability. Chapter 1735, Furious. Chapter 1735, Furious. At the hidden void in the dark storm. Swish. Ghost-like black-robed figures appeared silently. Hee, Moing, I didn't think that you would fail. Moreover, your target is merely a real god. The four black-robed men who were originally at that piece of void looked over and their eyes were filled with relish. If all of you have the talent, you can try assassinating him. I guarantee that the moment any of you approaches him, you will be discovered by him, Mo-ing said coldly. The four of us are not assassins and we are not proficient in assassination. What we are proficient in is head-on extermination. Just look. Later on, you will know how Jian Wushuang was killed by the four of us, one of the black-robed men sneered. There's no rush. It's still not the time for the four of us to strike. Let's wait a while longer. The second wave of killing has not begun yet, another black-robed man said. I will be watching. The few of them waited at their location quietly. Within the dark storm, Jian Wushuang was walking forward slowly. After knowing that the Acheron Palace was trying to assassinate him this time around, he became even more vigilant to the point that his nerves became extremely tight. Swish. Swish. Occasionally, some dark wind blades would rush toward him but all of them would be dispersed by Jian Wushuang easily. To the current him, the dark wind blades were not considered a threat. The real threat was the danger that was hidden in the darkness. King of Venomous Worms, is the move that you unleashed really effective? Jian Wushuang was chatting with the King of Venomous Worms in his mind. Don't worry. This is the secret skill that only my Plenilun clan possesses. As long as someone approaches you, I will notice it straight away. However, the secret skill only covers a range of 1,000 meters, the king of venomous worms said. 1,000 meters is not too bad, Jian Wushuan nodded his head. The assassination moments ago had caused him to be terrified, and at that moment he was still extremely fearful. If that almighty from before were to find another opportunity to attack him, Jian Wushuang had absolutely no confidence that he could avoid it again. However, the king of venomous worms had unleashed a secret skill which caused a special energy to cover 1,000-meter range around him. If such a kind of almighty were to launch a surprise attack on him again, at the very least, he would have some time to prepare. At that moment, all of a sudden, Jian Wushuang raised his head. He had already seen a figure who was sitting on the ground with his legs crossed at the end of his line of vision. Lei Chao. Jian Wushuang revealed a delighted expression and he walked over to the figure immediately. Jian Wushuang. Lei Chao, who had been sitting on the ground and did not dare to move about, also saw the arrival of Jian Wushuang and he revealed a delighted expression at once. In no time, the two of them joined up with each other. Jian Wushuang, I did not expect you to really be able to find me. Lei Chao's eyes were filled with disbelief. I have exerted a great amount of effort to find you, Jian Wushuang laughed. However, his expression turned grave quickly. Lei Chao, the matter this time around is not normal. Oh. Lei Chao was stunned. Jian Wushuang gave a simple explanation of the ambush that he had encountered in the dark storm, as well as his own judgment. Damn it. Lei Chao clenched both his fists tightly and his expression became unusually ugly. I have always felt that it was strange. When old freak Sui Gu was chasing me, he could have actually killed me. However, he did not do so. Back then, I still thought that he simply did not take advantage of the opportunity. However, looking at it now. Jian Wushuang, I'm sorry. I implicated you, Lei Chao said apologetically. No, the Acheron Palace's target is me and they are trying to get rid of me. In actual fact, I am the one who got you involved in this, Jian Wushuang said. Indeed. If not for Jian Wushuang, the Acheron Palace would not put in so much effort and pay so much price to take action against Lei Chao. Moreover, Lei Chao would also not go into the Buddhist demon sea and get himself in danger. Let's not talk about this now. We have to quickly think of a way to get out of here, Lei Chao said. Alright, Jian Wushuang nodded his head and he had a grave expression. All of a sudden. Jian Wushuang, someone has come, the king of venomous worms' voice could be heard abruptly. Jian Wushuang realized instantly that a ghost-like figure had appeared behind him again. Moreover, it was that same dagger which was emitting a shocking amount of cold light. The dagger moved with lightning speed and it headed toward Jian Wushuang's head again. Humph. Jian Wushuang gave a cold hum. This time around, he had taken precautions since a long time ago. He attacked straight away by swinging the Blood Mountain sword in his hands, which were filled with an infinite amount of sword essence. Clang! The Blood Mountain sword and the dagger clashed head-on and a violent sound of blows being exchanged could be heard. The ghost-like figure who had launched a surprise on Jian Wushuang then retreated abruptly. Lei Chao, be careful. Jian Wushuang did not forget to remind Lei Chao. However, when he looked at Lei Chao again, his expression changed fiercely. Lei Chao had an extremely hideous face. His eyes, which were looking at Jian Wushuang, were also filled with a shocking amount of murderous intent. He had already extended his palms and two flittering lights headed toward Jian Wushuang. This is. As Jian Wushuang looked at the two flittering lights which were shot over, he recognized them. They were two god-destroying pearls. Back then, His Highness Mu Hong had almost destroyed the divine pond of absolute beginning by relying on the god-destroying pearl. Jian Wushuang was certain about the power of the god-destroying pearl. One of them was already extremely frightening. With two of them, they definitely had the ability to kill a Sir God. However, at that moment, the two god-destroying pearls were thrown over from Lei Chao's hands and it was very clear it was thrown toward him. Ancient God's secret skill, 8 divine mountains. With a cry from Jian Wushuang, bang! 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 Loud sounds could be heard repeatedly, and a 100,000-foot-tall golden divine mountains appeared out of thin air in front of Jian Wushuang again and again. A total of 8 golden divine mountains acted as a shield in front of Jian Wushuang. Explode! Lei Chao bellowed loudly, and the 2 god-destroying pearls exploded instantly. Boom! Boom! 2 deafening booms could be heard abruptly. The frightening power also spread across all directions and destroyed everything. The black storm, which was originally considered stable, became unusually violent due to the power generated from the attack. A great number of dark wind blades were blown about continuously, and this caused the void to collapse crazily. As for the 8 lofty golden divine mountains in front of Jian Wushuang, 7 of them had already collapsed, and even the 8th divine mountain was shaky and about to collapse. However, it still blocked the attack from the 2 god-destroying pearls forcefully in the end. Although the power was blocked, Jian Wushuang was not delighted in the slightest. Instead, he looked extremely glum. Lei Chao. Why? How is this possible? Jian Wushuang was roaring, and he was filled with anger. Lei Chao was an expert who was well respected by the people in the lineage of Star. He was a proud person, and he had contributed greatly to the lineage of Star. Moreover, when Jian Wushuang had only just arrived in the 10 sanctuaries back then, it had been Lei Chao who guided him personally. Furthermore, when Jian Wushuang was clearing the inverse cultivation test, Lei Chao had protected him quietly from the side. Hence, it could be said that Lei Chao had taken great care of Jian Wushuang. As such, after knowing that Lei Chao was in danger this time around, Jian Wushuang had rushed over to rescue him without any hesitation. However, the scene that had occurred in front of him was something that he had never expected. Chapter 1736, Soul Control. Chapter 1736, Soul Control. He didn't die. Lei Chao's face looked devastated as he stared at Jian Wushuang. You kept your guard up. Jian Wushuang's gaze was cold, and he remained silent. He had kept his guard up. It was a fundamental awareness after he knew that he had fallen into a trap. Plus, he had already found it a little strange previously. Firstly, according to Lei Chao, he had been chased after by old monster Sui Gu for a very long time. In the end, he had had no choice but to run into Buddhist demon C, but from the beginning till the end. No one saw the scene with their own eyes, only Lei Chao said so. Secondly, even if he was really chased after, Lei Chao shouldn't run so far onto the Triangle Island, which happened to be within the dark storm. One should know that it would be extremely difficult if Jian Wushuang wanted to escape the dark storm. After all, there was restraint of dark wind blade. When he thought about it carefully, something wasn't right. But Jian Wushuang didn't suspect Lei Chao. But then, Lei Chao launched an attack at him. I want to know why, Jian Wushuang said coldly. Why? Hee. There was a burst of sudden cold laughter. The spiritual figure that had tried to assassinate Jian Wushuang twice appeared from nowhere next to Lei Chao. The spiritual figure lifted his head and revealed an extremely ugly yet cold face. It was a lady's face. Jian Wushuang, let me tell you why. It's simple. Because this Lei Chao isn't the Lei Chao from before, the ugly-looking lady said. Jian Wushuang's face changed. This Lei Chao wasn't the Lei Chao before. What does that mean? I understand now, King of Venomous Worms said, Jian Wushuang, if I'm not mistaken, Lei Chao should be soul-controlled. Soul control? Jian Wushuang stunned. Soul control is an extremely high-end technique to manipulate soul power. Under normal circumstances, only expert whose soul fire has transformed and become a complete soul, and also focused on soul attacks, would know how to perform this technique. Plus, such a technique requires one's soul strength to be higher by a few levels than the other party to succeed. For instance, Lei Chao was an expert on the real god ranking list, and he had at least lit his soul fire and gotten in contact with soul power. To perform soul control on such expert, the person who carried out the technique must have definitely already reached the level of Emperor God in terms of soul strength. King of Venomous Worms said. Once a person is soul controlled, the person is pretty much dead. He is only left with a body. Their consciousness will obey the instructions of the controller unconditionally. Even if the controller wanted him to kill his wife and all his friends and family, he wouldn't hesitate at all. I see, Jian Wushuang's face grew in distress. He then looked at Lei Chao as his body quivered. He originally thought Lei Chao had betrayed him, but it seemed that it wasn't the truth. Lei Chao was soul-controlled and he had to do something despite himself. King of Venomous Worms, can this soul control technique be removed? Jian Wushuang asked. There's no way to remove it. Soul control technique is extremely vicious and barbaric. Once one is controlled, he will never be able to shake it off. Even if you killed the person who performed the technique, the person who was soul controlled would die too, King of Venomous Worms said. Jian Wushuang felt even more devastated when he heard that. It was obvious that Lei Chao had been soul controlled and Jian Wushuang had no way of saving him. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. He suppressed his fright and anger as he took out a token to send Hall Master Yuan a message. The context of the message was naturally Jian Wushuang's misfortune and his decision. After he sent the message, he put away the token. Then, his gaze immediately went sharp and cold. He stole a glance at the ugly-looking lady. Acheron Palace has good skills. It seems like you're not stupid, the ugly-looking lady smiled. As you know that it is Acheron Palace who is doing this, you should understand that you stand no chance of living if Acheron Palace launches an attack. So, I advise you to kill yourself instead. Kill myself? Because of you alone. Jian Wushuang's gaze was cold. Hail all experts that Acheron Palace have arranged. You won't be able to kill me alone. Of course, the ugly-looking lady smiled maliciously. 4 of you should take over now. Just as she spoke. Ha! Young man, you're quite capable, I see. I never thought the 4 of us would have the opportunity to attack. A cold yet unbridled laughter spread in the dark storm. Then, figures in black robes appeared one after another from the nearby void. There was a total of 4 figures in black robes. Every single one of their auras were shocking. They hemmed Jian Wushuang in the moment they appeared. Jian Wushuang's eyes were cold as he glared at the 4 people surrounding him. There were males and females among the 4 of them. Everyone brought about extraordinary pressure to Jian Wushuang. They were obviously out-and-out Sir God experts, and they weren't any ordinary Sir Gods. Besides, Jian Wushuang had never seen the 4 of them. Among the almighties that he knew, there weren't any similar ones too. For Sir Gods, also 4 top experts. In addition to the one who tried to assassinate me, there's a total of 5 Sir Gods. Acheron Palace does think highly of me. Jian Wushuang's voice was low. No choice. You are so potent. With such great potential, even Acheron Palace has scruples. Hence, we naturally can't make any careless mistakes when we launch the attack, the ugly lady sneered. Jian Wushuang, you are really impressive. Mo Ying's assassination power, not any one of us here could compare to her. Whoever she aims at won't stand a chance to stay alive. But you survived from her assassination. And the god-destroying pearl that Lei Chao threw, theoretically, it could kill you too. But you survived as well, a young man with ferocious features said with a deep voice. But that's good too. It gave the 4 of us a chance to attack. Everyone, let us have some fun with the genius today, the young man with ferocious features suggested. No problem. Hee, I will take good care of him. Don't kill him too soon, otherwise there's no fun. The few of them smiled savagely. Save the bullshit. Go ahead and kill him. According to the plan, you fight at close quarters while I am in charge of surprise attack, the ugly lady, Mo-ing, said. No problem, the 4 figures in black robes nodded their heads and then the 5 figures moved simultaneously. Swoosh. 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 There were 5 figures and every single one was moving supernaturally fast, especially that ugly lady, Mo-ing. She disappeared from Jian Wushuang's sight entirely. A war instantly exploded. Chapter 1737 Battling 5 Sir Gods. Boom. All of a sudden, the void in front of Jian Wushuang split open and a black-robed figure came out of it. The black-robed figure then grinned hideously at Jian Wushuang and his whole right hand from the arm to finger was scarlet in color. Ghost's bloody hand. With a swing of the bloody hand, the universe was torn open. The bloody hand was just like a crimson flittering light and its fierce, strong wind was sufficient to tear a chaotic real god into pieces easily. Jian Wushuang's eyes were ice-cold and he moved with lightning speed. By shaking the Blood Mountain sword in his hands slightly, a great amount of sword essence burst forth. After that, with a swing of the Blood Mountain sword, the shocking sword shadow split into 3 and sliced the incoming giant bloody hand into 3 parts. At the same time as he swung his sword, there were 2 brilliant rays of golden light beside Jian Wushuang. They were then shot out with one of them on his left and the other on his right. Clang! Clang! 2 clashing sounds could be heard in the void and the 2 rays of golden light were sent flying. However, after becoming stable again, they continued to attack without any fear of death and with an even faster speed. These golden swords are not too bad. However, it's a pity that the 2 of them are too little. A strange laughter could be heard in Jian Wushuang's ears and the 4 figures sent the 2 Hongjun golden swords flying easily. After that, their bodies approached Jian Wushuang quickly. After an instant, they had already appeared beside Jian Wushuang. Among the 4 of them, one of them used bloody claws, one of them used a saber, one of them held a giant hammer and the last person used a strange hook. They then attacked at the same time. Swish! 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 There were rays of light glowing. Their speed was so fast that it was shocking. Jian Wushuang gave a cold hum and his body expanded into a dark golden ancient god that was 100 feet tall instantly. At the space between his eyebrows, there were 6 stars. Moreover, his huge body also started to undergo a transformation immediately. Extra heads and brawny, dark golden arms appeared. He had a total of 5 heads and 10 arms. 5 heads, 10 arms. On the 5 heads, the 5 pairs of icy cold eyes were filled with a great amount of anger. As for the 10 arms, each of them held a sword tightly and an enormous amount of divine power was released abruptly. Piss off! Swords that were filled with a tremendous amount of sword essence were swung out repeatedly, as though the world would be destroyed and judgment was being passed. His attack then clashed with the incoming 4 attacks that were moving quickly head-on. Boom! 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 Frightening booming sounds could be heard repeatedly. Every booming sound was accompanied with frightening divine power dissipating and this caused the dark storm which it touched to be on the verge of collapsing. A great number of dark wind blades were blown about mercilessly and they would move to the battlefield from time to time. However, 1 or 2 dark wind blades were not even considered a threat to those top Sir Gods present. Little kid, accept your death. With a furious roar, one of the black-robed men raised the big hammer in his hands fiercely and tremendous amount of power gathered. In an instant, it looked as though the whole universe was thrown toward him. What a joke! Jian Wushuang was filled with evil energy. He then moved his 5 heads and 10 arms madly in order to unleash his close-quarters combat abilities to the best of his abilities. At the same time, under the control of Jian Wushuang's soul power, the 2 Hongjun golden swords attacked crazily. Although all the four surrounding Sir gods possessed shocking abilities and they could exert a huge pressure on Jian Wushuang when they teamed up, Jian Wushuang could remain undefeated for a short amount of time by relying on the perfect combination of his close-quarters combat abilities and Hong Jun golden swords. This little kid. His close-quarter combat abilities are so frightening. With the four of us teaming up, we can only push him back slightly. Moreover, it is a situation where we have a huge advantage in our comprehension of doctrines. It's very normal. He possesses the ancient god bloodline and ancient gods are recognized by the eternal chaotic world as the number one in close-quarters combat. It will only be interesting like this and it will also be more fun. All the eyes of the four Sir gods were scorching hot and they were filled with excitement. Jian Wushuang's powerful abilities had given them more stimulus instead. At the same time, the abilities of the four were unleashed gradually and Jian Wushuang was under an even greater amount of pressure. At the same time that Jian Wushuang was fighting intensely with the four Sir gods, a threatening cold essence came from behind Jian Wushuang abruptly. Jian Wushuang understood at once that the assassin, Mo Ying, who had been hiding herself in the darkness, had attacked. King of venomous worms. Jian Wushuang bellowed. Leave it to me. A deep voice echoed in Jian Wushuang's mind. A black hole had appeared at the void behind Jian Wushuang and a ghost-like figure had come out of it. Just like before, her hand held a dagger and the dazzling gleam of the dagger appeared abruptly. At that moment, the dagger attacked. Be it the time where she attacked or the way she attacked, both of them were perfect. As Jian Wushuang was besieged by the four Sir gods, even though he had 5 heads and 10 arms, he was still unable to block the attack. However, all of a sudden, the muscle on the back of his huge, dark golden ancient god body wriggled downward. After that, rustle. A total of 3 hideous, dark red tentacles appeared abruptly. The 3 tentacles were like 3 dark red flittering lights and they pierced the void easily. After that, they struck the incoming dagger with lightning speed. The dagger was extremely sharp and cold. Moreover, it was also extremely powerful. Hence, it pierced more than half of the tentacles instantly. However, with the great amount of strength that the tentacles contained, the ugly-looking woman Mo Ying was sent flying. Straight away after that, rustle, rustle, rustle. The surface of Jian Wushuang's ancient god body wriggled crazily and a hideous worm beast came out of it. As soon as it appeared, the worm beast's body started to expand madly with an unbelievable speed. Thousands of feet long, tens of thousands of feet long, hundreds of thousands of feet long, in the end, it was more than 1,000,000 feet long. With the appearance of the frightening worm beast within the dark storm almost burst open. Its gigantic, vast body was filled with red scales. It was also emitting extremely cold light. In addition, brawny and hideous tentacles were coming out from beside the scales. There were so many of them that it was uncountable. By looking at it, there were probably more than tens of thousands of tentacles. At the highest point of the red body, there was a huge, dark red head. The head only had a pair of scarlet eyes that were of the size of the sun. Moreover, there was also a large, fierce-looking mouth that had opened. A frightening aura was released from the king of venomous worms' body. Upon seeing the huge monster in front of them, even the 5 Sir gods present revealed a shocked expression. However, Jian Wushuang understood that the body was still not the peak condition of the king of venomous worms. At its peak, its body could act as a giant island when it was curled up. King of venomous worms, why do you have so many tentacles now? Jian Wushuang's 100-foot-tall ancient god body was standing at the top of the king of venomous worms' head. When he looked at the surroundings, he revealed a surprised expression. According to what he knew, the king of venomous worms was a plenilune centipede and he should only have thousands of tentacles. However, at present, he had brought out tens of thousands of tentacles. Ha! Jian Wushuang, this is all thanks to you. As you are an inverse cultivator as well as a royal ancient god, my bloodline has been affected as well. After the transformation this time around, I have transformed into a supreme full-foot plenilun of the Plenilun clan. Chapter 1738, Full-Foot Plenilun. Jian Wushuang was surprised. Sponsored content. Remove ads. From 1,000-foot plenilun to full-foot plenilun, it was obvious that there was a huge elevation. Then, the 5 Sir Gods stood together in the void. They looked at the huge figure before them and their faces grew solemn. The information didn't say that there is such a fierce worm following Jian Wushuang. Judging by the looks of the worm, it should be plenilun that is a parasite on ancient god, but it has so many sirai. Humph, it's just a plenilun. What's there to be afraid of? Let's go. The 5 Sir Gods moved again. Jian Wushuang, let's go too, King of Venomous Worms' deep voice rang in Jian Wushuang's head. At the very next moment, its huge body quivered. Cry. A shrill cry resonated through the universe. Then, countless ferocious sirai covered the 5 Sir Gods instantly. The sirai were like arrows that shot out. They contained terrifying powers of destruction. The 5 Sir Gods moved one after another. They shuttled to and fro the sirai like ghosts. Occasionally, they would attack and press with force. In an instant, they shattered more than hundreds of sirai. However, even though the sirai were shattered, King of Venomous Worms' recovery ability grew them back in the next moment. The 5 Sir Gods jostled and elbowed their ways. The sirai couldn't stop them at all. Sponsored content. Remove ads. But then, in King of Venomous Worms' huge, bloodshot eyes, there was boundless blood light that flowed out. Secret skill of plenilun, scarlet light. Swoosh. The 2 rays of scarlet light burst out of King of Venomous Worms' 2 huge eyes. The 2 rays of light contained the power to destroy heaven and earth. Everywhere that they swept past, the void collapsed. The 2 rays of scarlet light shot the 2 Sir Gods at the front at the first instant. The 2 Sir Gods' bodies shook but continued to pound forward the next moment. They live up to their name as almighties. Although I have transformed into full-foot plenilun, you're still a 6-star ancient god after all. The power of scarlet light isn't enough to affect them, King of Venomous Worms said coldly. Let me take care of them. Jian Wushuang's face grew solemn as boundless divine power billowed in madness. Ancient god unique skill, universal laws. There were brawny figures that substantiated behind Jian Wushuang one after another. The figures were all in substantial form and every single one of them gave out a fierce aura. There was a total of 1,000 figures. Destroy. Jian Wushuang wielded a long sword and the ancient god shadows behind him wielded their swords simultaneously. Sponsored content. Remove ads. Wow. 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 Countless sword lights were swung out at the same time. The sword lights covered heaven and earth, and all living things in the universe were visibly moved. If one had the support of boundless divine power, the power of the unique skill, universal laws, would become extremely terrifying. For instance, even if an ordinary ancient god used universal laws, they could at most perform simple attacks like a wave and a punch. Even so, it would drain a huge amount of divine power. But if sword principle were to be performed with the embodiment of universal laws, the required divine power would be even higher. Naturally, the power was far beyond simple hits and punches. The ultimate divine power droplet in Jian Wushuang's body had already accumulated 99 drops. Hence, his divine power was as vast as an ocean and he wasn't afraid to use them. He had utilized universal laws and performed a sword principle directly. The power was earth-shattering. The 5 Sir Gods who were pounding at him saw the pressing sword light flooded and their faces changed. The sword light wasn't like the sirai earlier that could be scattered or dodged easily. Not only did the sword light cover a wide range, the power was also shocking. Hong! The terrifying whistle rang and the power of the sword light exploded. The 5 Sir Gods had performed many tricks too. They smashed and blocked the sword light and it quickly dispersed. Sponsored content. Remove ads. But suddenly, there were two rays of resplendent golden lights. They appeared before a Sir God flexibly. The Sir God who was holding a saber had got a shock. He immediately wielded the saber in his hand and swung out two blade shadows. Then, the two Hong Jun golden sword flew out. This young man has quite a bit of a trick in his sleeve. According to the information, it only said that he manipulates two golden swords that are extremely fast in speed. He could attack and pressure opponents over and over again so that his opponent has no chance to counterattack. However, from what it seems, his other skills are very impressive too. Let's not waste time. Let's kill him with that one move. The five Sir Gods exchanged a few comments and immediately came to a mutual agreement. Swoosh. 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 The five figures suddenly appeared magically altogether. Then, they stood in five corners surrounding Jian Wushuang. They flicked their wrists and took out a fiery red flag each. That is, formation flag. Jian Wushuang saw the five fiery red flags and his face instantly changed. In eternal chaotic world, there were many ferocious formations. These formations required a lot of time to prepare before performing and had to be set up meticulously. However, there were also some other unique formations, especially trap formations, killing formations, and that sort of formation, that were rather easy to set up. Some formations could even be hidden in tokens or unique treasures. When required, it could be taken out from the token or unique treasure directly. As the five Sir Gods raised up their flags, it was obvious that they were setting up a formation. Formation, the killing formation of 9 cuts. The five Sir Gods' gazes were cold and they dripped fresh blood into the fiery red flags. Suddenly, the fiery red flags grew tremendously and blended into the surrounding universe. There was an instant explosion of solemnity. Jian Wushuang was still standing on King of Venomous Worm's head and he looked around. He saw that there was an extra layer of crimson shield in the surrounding void. The crimson shield engulfed him within and he had no chance of escaping. I'm in big trouble, Jian Wushuang's looked troubled. Such an imposing, austere manner. The formation should be an impressive killing formation and it is designed to kill you, King of Venomous Worms said in Jian Wushuang's head. Killing formation was a powerful killer move and it was performed by 5 Sir Gods. Jian Wushuang felt extremely pressured. Jian Wushuang, you made us 5 Sir Gods team up to set up the killing formation of 9 cuts to kill you. Even if you die, you should be proud, it was the ugly-looking lattice, Mo Ying's, cold voice. D****, it's the killing formation of 9 cuts. King of Venomous Worms shouted. He obviously knew the origins of the killing formation. Move, kill him. Mo Ying's gaze was cold. In a corner of the void, the Sir God who was using a saber raised his saber and swung it in the direction of Jian Wushuang. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note, please download the sponsor's game to support us. Chapter 1739, Give It His All Buzz. All of a sudden, a frightening saber light appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. Originally, this saber light was unleashed by that Sir God himself. However, with the amplification by the killing formation, its power rose by close to 10 times. Jian Wushuang raised the Blood Mountain sword in his hands, rumble. A total of 61 crimson sword shadows was formed and they superimposed onto one another instantly and formed a new sword shadow. After that, the sword shadow was swung out and it clashed with the saber light head-on. In the end, bam! With a loud sound, the crimson sword shadow was dissipated almost instantly and the saber light, which still contained a considerable amount of power, continued to head toward Jian Wushuang. Upon seeing that, Jian Wushuang's eyes turned grave. The huge body of the King of Venomous Worms, who was below him, rolled up fiercely and countless tentacles appeared crazily. The saber light swept past everything and cut open thousands of tentacles of the king of venomous worms in one go. A considerable amount of power also struck the body of the king of venomous worms, which was filled with dark red scales, and this caused the king of venomous worms to feel extremely uncomfortable. It's too strong. This is the killing formation of 9 cuts. If the people who deployed this formation were to use any attack, its power would rise by close to 10 times after the amplification by the killing formation. Unless we are able to destroy this killing formation forcefully, no matter how many techniques we have, we will definitely die. Jian Wushuang, think of a way quickly. The king of venomous worms' voice was filled with impatience. Jian Wushuang's expression was ice cold and he was looking at the 5 Sir Gods outside the killing formation. Among the 5 Sir Gods, the cold man who was holding a big hammer was about to attack. I have to give it my all. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly and his eyes were glowing with determination. On his dark golden ancient god body, there were 6 stars in the space between his eyebrows. However, at that time, Jian Wushuang slapped his own forehead fiercely. Slap! All of a sudden, the quadrangular star at the highest point was broken into pieces. Ancient God's secret skill. Star destruction skill. This was a secret skill which would allow one's abilities to rise greatly for a short period of time by destroying one's own ancient god star. It was a secret skill that only ancient gods possessed. With one ancient god star destroyed, the ancient god power in Jian Wushuang's body skyrocketed in an instant and even the king of venomous worms below him underwent a slight change at that moment. Rumble. Within the killing formation, the second attack had already appeared. It was an ancient, big hammer. The big hammer had repelled the universe and it contained power which could destroy the world. Upon seeing that, Jian Wushuang's eyes glowed with a dark golden light and an infinite amount of divine power gathered on his right hand's index finger instantly. Ancient God's 6th finger, Sun Corrosion. Boom! A dark golden, giant finger pierced the space forcefully and clashed with the ancient, big hammer with lightning speed. A violent booming sound could be heard at once and the frightening power spread in all directions. However, the power was stopped by the crimson wall of the killing formation which acted as an obstacle. Jian Wushuang only felt an impact spreading toward him which caused his body to stagger. After that, he retreated a few steps backward quickly. Even though my abilities rose greatly after I destroyed one ancient god star, I am still at a disadvantage. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned grave and he understood immediately. Destroying only one star was totally not enough to have an impact on the killing formation at all. Humph. Jian Wushuang gave a cold hum and his eyes became even more determined. His palm then slapped his own forehead again. Slap. Slap. 2 ancient god stars were destroyed at the same time. In addition to the 1 star that he had destroyed previously, it was power from destroying 3 stars. Rumble. The ancient god power in Jian Wushuang's body underwent a transformation in terms of quality immediately. At that moment, his abilities rose greatly. Straight after that, he took big steps forward. As he looked at the crimson palm that was forming within the killing formation, a vast amount of ancient god power burst forth. Break! With a furious cry, Jian Wushuang clenched his right fist and punched fiercely. The crimson palm also changed into a crimson flittering light and attacked with lightning speed. Bam! The sound shook the heavens and the crimson flittering light dissipated. The crimson palm, which contained power that had been amplified greatly with the help of the killing formation of 9 cuts, was actually torn apart right away. What? Outside the killing formation, all the 5 Sir Gods revealed shocked expressions. They knew how powerful the killing formation of 9 cuts was. Moreover, all 5 of them were Sir Gods who were extremely strong. Their own abilities were already very unreasonable, and with the amplification of the killing formation of 9 cuts, their attack power would increase by close to 10 times. Under such circumstances, the attacks that they had unleashed randomly should have achieved the limit of a Sir God and they should be very close to Emperor Gods. For such attacks, among the Sur gods in the eternal chaotic world, there were not many of them who could repel them head-on. However, Jian Wushuang had actually torn apart their attacks, which had been amplified by the killing formation of 9 cuts. Those abilities were much stronger than they had expected. This Jian Wushuang has probably not used the secret skill of Star Palace yet. Damn it. He is a lot more difficult to deal with than the report said. Use the devil 9 cuts right away. Don't give him any chances. The 5 Sur gods made a decision immediately. The 5 Sur gods then took action at the same time straight away, and a great amount of divine power could be seen entering the killing formation crazily. Rumble. The void also shook madly. A vast amount of divine power gathered in the void of the killing formation. With the divine power gathering, a gigantic crimson god appeared in front of Jian Wushuang slowly. The devil god was 1,000 feet tall and it was not considered very big. However, the aura that it emitted was already past the level of a Sur god and it had achieved a completely new level. It was the level of an emperor god. It's devil 9 cuts. A devil 9 cuts created by 5 Sur god experts working together will achieve the level of an emperor god. Upon seeing that, the king of venomous worms became extremely terrified. Jian Wushuang's expression was also extremely grave. He could feel a huge amount of pressure from the devil 9 cuts in front of him. King of venomous worms, please return to my body first, Jian Wushuang said. Alright, the king of venomous worms nodded his head. If it were a Sur god level intense battle, with the king of venomous worms already transformed into the full-foot plenilun, the king of venomous worms could indeed fight side by side with Jian Wushuang and hence be of great help to Jian Wushuang. However, when the battle rose to the level of emperor gods, there would be no room for the king of venomous worms to step in. What he could do was stay within Jian Wushuang's body and do his best to help Jian Wushuang recover his divine power and body. Within the killing formation, the extremely huge plenilun giant beast started to shrink with shocking speed immediately. After a short amount of time, he became a small worm beast and entered Jian Wushuang's body again. The killing formation became spacious at once. Jian Wushuang had an enormous amount of aura and his body expanded until he was 1,000 feet tall. His body was glowing with dark golden light and only 3 ancient god stars remained in the space between his eyebrows. The light that the 3 ancient god stars emitted was unusually dazzling as well. In front of Jian Wushuang was the 1,000-foot-tall devil 9 cuts. The body of the devil 9 cuts was scarlet in color and it was as though a layer of armor had covered it. In addition, it possessed a tremendous amount of murderous intent. Chapter 1740, Devil 9 Cuts. The killing formation was filled with an imposing, austere manner. The entire universe was frozen. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, then die. There was a bellow and Jian Wushuang kept his look of 5 heads and 10 arms. Every single one of his arms was holding on to a long sword. He took a huge stride forward with terrifying power. Suddenly, he appeared in front of the devil 9 cuts. Roar! Devil 9 cuts let out an earth-shattering roar. Merely the impact of the sound wave in his roar was enough to exterminate an expert on real god ranking list. Suddenly, devil 9 cuts wriggled its body and there were muscular arms that extended. Just like Jian Wushuang, he had 10 arms as well. The 10 arms held a variety of divine weapons substantiated with divine power. Under the coverage of soaring rage, devil 9 cuts charged forward ferociously. The 2 lofty statues that were taller than 100 zhang in height collided in the middle of the formation. Bang! 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 Deafening roars resonated across the universe. Every roar brought about powerful explosions that could destroy the universe. Jian Wushuang wielded the 10 long swords in his hands and swung them continuously under the utilization of special attack. Although Devil 9 Cuts was like Jian Wushuang with 10 arms, close combat didn't rely on the number of arms. Jian Wushuang had collaborated it with his special attack skill while Devil Nine Cuts hadn't. In terms of close-body combat, the Devil Nine Cuts that was controlled by the 5 Sir Gods was far behind. However, Devil Nine Cuts possessed the power of an Emperor God. In that aspect, Jian Wushuang wouldn't be able to compare favorably even after he broke 3 ancient God stars. Hence, he definitely had the upper hand in terms of close-body combat. However, when they really fought, Jian Wushuang was slightly at a disadvantage. Just then. Swoosh! Swoosh! There were 2 rays of golden lights that suddenly glowed. The 2 rays of golden lights were on the left and on the right each. Regardless of speed or power, both were enhanced tremendously and the lights slashed at Devil Nine Cuts' head. Devil Nine Cuts' 2 arms swung in madness and forced the 2 Hong Jun golden swords back. However, Jian Wushuang seized the chance to swing out 2 sword lights that chopped off both the arms. Jian Wushuang chopped Devil Nine Cuts' 2 arms in collaboration with Hong Jun golden swords. He had yet to celebrate when he saw Devil Nine Cuts let out an angry roar. There were boundless clouds churning and a large amount of blood fog flooded in. Its power suddenly rose. At the same time, the 2 arms that Jian Wushuang had chopped off recovered quickly. Jian Wushuang, it's useless. Devil Nine Cuts is unrivaled within the killing formation of 9 cuts. No matter how severe the damage you cause, forget that you just cut off its 2 arms, even if you chop off its head or slash it in half from the middle, it will recover immediately. King of Venomous Worm's voice rang in Jian Wushuang's head. If you want to stay alive, there's only one way, which is to figure out a way to dissolve the killing formation of 9 cuts. Otherwise, no matter how much effort you put in, you'll only die in the end. I understand. Jian Wushuang's face was cold. As he fought, he glanced at the 5 Sir Gods outside the formation. The 5 Sir Gods were fully focused on controlling Devil Nine Cuts. I broke 3 ancient God stars in one go and my power did increase tremendously. However, the power of ancient God stars couldn't be maintained long enough. I have to seize the chance. Jian Wushuang made a decision in his head. Hong! 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 The 10 swords in Jian Wushuang's hands continued to swing out ferociously. Every stroke was like a mountain. In addition to that, Hong Yung golden sword forcibly blocked Devil Nine Cuts' attack. But suddenly, Jian Wushuang quickly retreated. He retreated all of a sudden and it was outside of Devil Nine Cuts, as well as the 5 Sir Gods' expectations. As he retreated, Jian Wushuang poured out the divine power in him. Secret skill of ancient god, thunder attracting skill. Hong! Above the space storm that was trembling in balance was the vast sky. At that moment, there was a huge crack that appeared in the sky. In the crack, terrifying thunderous power filled the air. Suddenly, there were countless life-destroying sacred thunders that suddenly descended. Every single strike of life-destroying sacred thunder required a Sir God to treat it with extreme care. But then, there were about 100 strikes of them descending at the same time. Plus, after the hundreds of life-destroying sacred thunder had descended but were yet to strike the body of Devil Nine Cuts, they merged together at a terrifying speed. Suddenly, a huge thunder dragon that was over 10 zhang thick roared as it pounded at Devil Nine Cuts. Thunder attracting skill, one of the 3 ancient gods' secret skills. As Jian Wushuang broke 3 ancient god stars and his power increased tremendously, the life-destroying sacred thunder he stirred was even more powerful. The thunder dragon instantly entangled the huge body of Devil Nine Cuts. The terrifying thunderous power suddenly exploded. Devil Nine Cut wasn't afraid but it waved his arms, intending to break the thunder dragon. Just as the huge thunder dragon entangled Devil Nine Cuts, Jian Wushuang's eyes were fixed on a person outside the killing formation. That person was the ugly lady who was good at assassination tricks. Mo Ying. Out of the 5 Sir Gods, she is the one good at assassination and she is also the weakest in defense. Hence, she will be easiest to kill. There was a murderous intention in Jian Wushuang's eyes. The next moment, ancient god power swept out again. Secret skill of ancient god, moon-picking skill. The void instantly shook. One hand to flip the sky and the other hand to pick the moon. The strongest secret skill for ancient god tribe to perform. Walala. The void outside the killing formation where Mo-ing was suddenly shattered and collapsed like a piece of paper. An extremely terrifying yet unique strength ignored the hindrance of the killing formation of 9 cuts and caused an effect on Mo-ing. What? Mo-ying's face changed. She could feel the surrounding universe, space and time pressuring her from all directions. The pressure was too strong. One should know that Jian Wushuang had performed moon-picking skill back in Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning when he wasn't giving his all, but he aimed at 4 Sir Gods and caused all of them to be injured. Among them, His Highness Mu Hong was severely injured. But then, Jian Wushuang broke 3 ancient god stars directly and he was giving his all. The moon-picking skill that he had performed was only aiming at one person, and the person was a Sir God that was good at assassinations in the dark. This kind of Sir God wouldn't be strong in defense. Immediately. No. Mo-ing let out a shrill cry. Her body exploded into pieces under the pressure of space and time. In an instant, she vanished into thin air. Sir God Mo-ing, who had set up the killing formation, died and the killing formation instantly collapsed. Chapter 1741, The Fourth Wave of Attack. Not good. How is this possible? The remaining 4 Sir Gods were extremely terrified and they no longer had a relaxed expression like before. It should be known that they had even used the trump card killing formation of 9 cuts that they had prepared. However, in the end, Jian Wushuang had killed Mo-ing in the killing formation of 9 cuts. How can this happen? How can he disregard the killing formation of 9 cuts and kill Mo-ing? What kind of technique is this? The 4 Sir Gods were filled with doubt. However, they did not know that the moon-picking skill that Jian Wushuang had used was the strongest secret skill of the ancient god clan, and it was really a very remarkable ability. This secret skill made use of the power of the universe, space and time. Moreover, no matter where it was, as long as space and time existed in the piece of void, Jian Wushuang could use it. The killing formation of 9 cuts could indeed block all kinds of attacks. However, these attacks were merely material-based attacks. As for the moon-picking skill, which was a secret skill which made use of the universe, space and time, the killing formation of 9 cuts was totally unable to block it. With the death of Mo-ing, the killing formation of 9 cuts had collapsed and the devil 9 cuts with a great amount of murderous intent and power had dissipated at once. Jian Wushuang glowed with murderous intent. Die! With a shrill cry, the 2 Hongjun golden swords which Jian Wushuang controlled turned into 2 shooting stars and moved with frightening speed. They then pierced the void and headed to the 4 Sir Gods with lightning speed. Upon seeing that, the 4 Sir Gods revealed terrified expressions in succession. Even the killing formation of 9 cuts had been broken through. As such, the fighting capabilities of Jian Wushuang, who had gone all out, were not something that the 4 of them could stop. Run! Without hesitation, the 4 Sir Gods started to escape. After all, they were all Sir God experts. Moreover, they were considered outstanding among the Sir Gods. If the 4 of them really wanted to escape, it would be difficult for Jian Wushuang to get all of them to stay. Even though it was not possible to get the 4 Sir Gods to stay, there was one person that Jian Wushuang absolutely had to keep. This person was Lei Chao. Swoosh! Jian Wushuang's body moved crazily and his dark golden eyes stared persistently at Lei Chao, who was standing in the void. At that time, Lei Chao did not have a fearful expression at all. Since his soul had been controlled, he did not have his own consciousness since a long time ago. Hence, he was no different from being dead. Lei Chao. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly and grief flashed in his heart. However, even more determination flashed in his heart. I will definitely avenge you. Please leave peacefully. Jian Wushuang spoke softly and pointed out one of his fingers from his right hand. A flittering light shot out and its speed was so fast that it was not an attack that Lei Chao could dodge. Moreover, Lei Chao did not dodge at all. The flittering light pierced through the space between Lei Chaos' eyebrows and took his life. Jian Wushuang appeared beside Lei Chao. With a swing of his hands, he put Lei Chaos' lifeless body into his Qian Kun ring. After finishing that, Jian Wushuang sighed deeply and his heart felt extremely heavy. As Lei Chaos' consciousness had been controlled, he was as good as dead. If he were to continue living like a puppet, it would be a humiliation and torture to him. As such, after knowing that, Jian Wushuang had made up his mind a long time ago to free Lei Chao. Acheron Palace. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly and his eyes were filled with an infinite amount of murderous intent and fury. Jian Wushuang, the world has always been cruel. Please try to get over this. Moreover, now is not the time for you to grieve, the king of venomous worms' voice echoed in Jian Wushuang's mind. I know, Jian Wushuang nodded his head and his eyes were icy cold. The king of venomous worms was right. The current moment was not the time for him to grieve. Because he himself could be killed by someone at any time. The Acheron Palace's way of doing things has always been very secretive and they will not take action easily. However, the moment they take action, they will definitely have absolute confidence. Jian Wushuang's eyes squinted, however, what I have come across so far is unable to force me into a hopeless situation. The Acheron Palace has definitely arranged for something else. Since entering the dark storm, Jian Wushuang had encountered 3 waves of danger. The first wave was the assassination attempt by the ugly-looking woman at the start. The assassination was extremely frightening and Jian Wushuang was almost killed. The second wave came from Lei Chao where he tossed 2 god-destroying pearls abruptly. Fortunately, Jian Wushuang had always been careful and he was prepared for it. If not, he would have ended up in an extremely miserable state. As for the third wave, it was the 5 Sir Gods attacking at the same time and they even had used the killing formation of 9 cuts. These 3 waves of danger were extremely perilous and they had indeed forced Jian Wushuang to go all out by making him unleash many of his trump cards and techniques. However, such an extent was still not considered perfectly safe. Hence, Jian Wushuang could confirm that the Acheron Palace still had the 4th wave of attack. The 4th wave of attack would be even more dangerous than the 3 waves of attacks from before. What will the 4th wave of attack be? Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. In no time, he knew about it. Jian Wushuang was still standing at the battlefield from before, which was inside the dark storm. As for the 4 Sir Gods who deployed the killing formation of 9 cuts to kill him, they had escaped originally. However, at that time, they headed toward Jian Wushuang again. Moreover, it was not just the 4 of them. At the center of the 4 of them, there was a shadow which was covered by a crimson robe. Under the escort of the 4 Sir Gods, the crimson-robed man walked out slowly and appeared in front of Jian Wushuang openly. After that, he stopped moving. At that moment, Jian Wushuang's expression became unusually ugly. An Emperor God. An Emperor God expert. The corners of Jian Wushuang's mouth were a bit distorted and he could not help but exclaim in admiration. As expected of the Acheron Palace. They would not take action easily. However, if they were to take action, they would definitely not fail. This rumor was really true. After sending 5 Sir Gods to team up and deploy the killing formation of 9 cuts, it was still not enough. They had actually secretly arranged for another Emperor God. It was an Emperor God. It was the level of the Star Palace Master as well as King Luo Zhen who was an 8-star ancient god. Although there seemed to be only one step between an emperor god and a Sir god, the gap between them was not smaller than the gap between a real god and Sir god. For example, the Devil 9 cuts from before, which was only just created with 5 Sir gods teaming up under the aid of the killing formation of 9 cuts, possessed the fighting capabilities of an emperor god. However, the Devil 9 cuts had only achieved the level of an emperor god in terms of strength, power, and other areas. However, when comparing close-quarters techniques, trump cards, and secret skills, it was completely incomparable to an actual emperor god. However, even though that was the case, it was still not something that Jian Wushuang could fight with. He could only rely on his own close-quarters combat abilities to deal with the Devil 9 cuts. After that, he had found an opportunity to kill Mo Ying, who had deployed the formation. With that, the Devil 9 cuts had dissipated by itself. As for a real Emperor God expert, he was many times stronger than the Devil 9 cuts. Moreover, the Emperor God in front of him did not look normal. Looks like this time around, it will not be as simple as just going all out. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes and with a flip of his palm, a picture scroll appeared in his hands. As Jian Wushuang tossed the picture scroll into the void, the big universe started to undergo changes right away. Chapter 1742, Emperor God Shuegu, 5 Sir gods teamed up and set up the killing formation of 9 cuts but couldn't kill you. On the contrary, you killed one of us instead. Jian Wushuang, you are much stronger than we, Acheron Palace, imagined. Luckily, we of Acheron Palace have prepared room for a maneuver. A creepy and hoarse voice was heard from the person in the crimson robe. As his voice reverberated, the person in the crimson robe flipped his palm and took out a crimson token. The crimson token gave out a strange aura. As the person in the crimson robe clenched, pack. The token broke and a billowing strength covered Jian Wushuang instantly. This is, Jian Wushuang's eyes fixed and his consciousness slowly immersed. It was as though he almost fell asleep. Jian Wushuang, quickly, wake up. This is a soul control trick. Quickly wake up. King of Venomous Worms' roar of fear and anger rang in Jian Wushuang's head. The vigorous soul fire in Jian Wushuang's sea of consciousness was burning and there was a sharp ache that suddenly hit him. Jian Wushuang's eyes dilated with horror and his features turned ferocious. You want to conduct soul control on me? Dream. Jian Wushuang was roaring in madness as he tried to shake off the unique situation. After a while, everything settled down. Jian Wushuang continued to stand there as he panted. His face grew unusually solemn. It seems like I failed, the person in the crimson robe glanced at Jian Wushuang and he sneered, but that's right. After all, he's an inverse cultivator. He nurtured his soul fire long ago. He naturally wouldn't be as easy to control as Lei Chao. B*****, there was billowing murderous intention in Jian Wushuang's eyes. He could tell that Lei Chao was soul controlled by the person in the crimson robe before him. However, soul control wasn't something he could perform and it was only contained in the token. The person in the crimson robe only played a guiding role. To be able to save a soul attack in a token and activate it by another person, and it still could control Lei Chao, who is an expert on real god ranking list. The person who performed the soul control is much stronger than I imagined, King of Venomous Worms said. Previously, King of Venomous Worms had thought the expert who performed soul control would be an emperor god who was good at soul attacks. However, from the looks of it, he wouldn't be an ordinary emperor god. As I couldn't soul control you, I have to kill you personally. The person in the crimson smiled leisurely and there was another crimson trident in his hand. Go! The person in the crimson robe waved his hand and the crimson trident quivered suddenly and charged at Jian Wushuang. The stab brought about boundless power of the universe and crimson light flooded in. It was terrifyingly dark. Jian Wushuang felt that he was locked in on by the trident. No matter how he dodged, even if he ran to the end of the world, he wouldn't be able to dodge the trident's attack. In particular, the terrifying power that the trident contained made Jian Wushuang's hair stand. Ancient God unique skill, 8 divine mountains. Jian Wushuang bellowed and the divine power in his body flowed out. He broke 3 ancient god stars and the increased boundless ancient god power had yet to disperse. But then, it was venting out like a tsunami. Bang! 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 8 lofty golden sacred mountains appeared from nowhere. Every sacred mountain was lofty and far bigger than before. It formed 8 layers of barriers in front of Jian Wushuang. It was the strongest defense unique skill of ancient god tribe. It was performed by Jian Wushuang after he broke 3 stars. It was powerful enough for a Sir God to feel hopeless. However, the crimson trident hit the 8 golden sacred mountains directly. Bang! 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 8 continuous bangs and the 8 lofty sacred mountains only hindered the trident for a while before it pierced them. The crimson trident that contained shocking power flew at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's face changed. Then, there was Sirai that shot out like lightning. King of Venomous Worm's body reappeared again and instantly formed a huge net. Hong! The huge net shattered and countless Sirai strangled into pieces. There were parts of King of Venomous Worm's body that were torn apart as well. However, the trident's power remained as it flew at Jian Wushuang. There was a chilly gleam in Jian Wushuang's eyes. He gripped Blood Mountain's sword in his hand tightly, then a boundless divine power flowed out and he slashed. Dang! There was a loud thud and Jian Wushuang's body shook vigorously. Blood Mountain's sword nearly fell out of his hand as he moved backwards from the impact. He took a dozen steps back before he steadied himself again. After he stopped, there was blood flowing out of the corner of his mouth. He's too strong. This is the power of an emperor god? Jian Wushuang was astonished. He gave his all and broke 3 stars to perform 8 divine mountains. However, they were instantly pierced while the defense skill that King of Venomous Worms had performed was broken down directly as well. Then, the stroke that he had cast with full force flew off as well and he was injured. It was merely a casual hit by the person in the crimson robe. His one hit was so powerful. No way. An ordinary emperor god won't be this powerful. He is definitely an expert among emperor gods. King of Venomous Worm's voice was heard in Jian Wushuang's head and his voice was solemn. Experts among emperor gods. Jian Wushuang muttered. He subconsciously looked at the crimson trident in the person in the crimson robe's hand. Then, his eyes dilated with shock. An emperor god using a crimson trident? And it is so powerful, Xuegu. You are emperor god Xuegu. Jian Wushuang shouted. Hehe, it seems like you recognized me. The person in the crimson robe let out a burst of strange laughter but didn't deny it. It's really him. Jian Wushuang's face immediately grew grave. He had been in Sanctuary Alliance for so long and he had a simple understanding of the Almighty's in eternal chaotic world. He did that so that when he was wandering outside, he could identify those who were more powerful and make a move earlier, in order to minimize the possibility of having a conflict. Among the Almighties in eternal chaotic world, there was Emperor God Xuegu. Emperor Xuegu kept himself to himself and he was evil in disposition. He was truly a devil but he happened to be terrifyingly powerful. Among emperor gods, he wasn't at the top, but he was in the middle upper range. The divine weapon that Emperor God Xuegu was using was the Crimson Trident. He was the only one among emperor gods in eternal chaotic world that used a strange divine weapon like the Crimson Trident. Hence, when Jian Wushuang saw the Crimson Trident, he recognized him immediately. No wonder Emperor God Xuegu rejected Sanctuary Alliance's invitation so many times and he was even too lazy to bother with Sanctuary Alliance. He turned out to be Acheron Palace's man. Jian Wushuang was terrified and angry. Chapter 1743, A Fight to the Death. Since you have recognized me, all the more you have to die. Emperor God Shui-Gus's eyes were filled with an infinite amount of murderous intent. He was someone from the Acheron Palace, and this was a secret that no one knew. However, at that time, Jian Wushuang knew about it. Die. Boom. A frightening aura rose from Emperor God Shui-Gus's body, and the whole universe turned into a sea of blood that was filled with countless skeletons in an instant. As for Emperor God Shui-Gu, he was the emperor who ruled the sea of blood. He was holding his crimson trident with one hand tightly. Similarly, the trident was filled with a great amount of vigor, and the void shook wildly. After that, the crimson trident attacked again. This time around, when the crimson trident attacked, it increased in size at the same time, and it looked like a trident that could destroy the world. Comparing powers, it was many times stronger than before. Upon seeing that, an unprecedented amount of madness glowed within Jian Wushuang's eyes. His ancient god body was standing in the void proudly. At that moment, his right hand slapped his own forehead again. It should be known that of the 6 ancient god stars in the space between his eyebrows, he had already destroyed 3 of them previously. The star destruction skill was a secret skill used by ancient gods to allow them to go all out. If only 1 or 2 stars were destroyed, it would be easy to restore them. However, if 3 stars were destroyed, it would be more difficult to restore them. However, slap, slap, slap. Sounds that sounded like constellations bursting could be heard repeatedly. At that moment, the 3 remaining ancient god stars in the space between Jian Wushuang's eyebrows were destroyed at the same time. In addition to the 3 stars that had been destroyed previously, Jian Wushuang had destroyed all 6 stars. It was obvious that Jian Wushuang had given his all. He wanted to fight to the death. Come! A furious roar came out of Jian Wushuang's mouth, and it reverberated across the big universe. With all 6 stars destroyed, Jian Wushuang's ancient god power rose again to a completely new level instantly. Such a stage, combined with Jian Wushuang's stage 2 ultimate real god's divine power, made his divine power similar to that of a normal emperor god. Rumble. A great amount of divine power moved about, and it gathered at the index finger of Jian Wushuang's right hand. At that time, the index finger of his right hand had completely become a crystal jade, and the crystal jade was dark gold in color. Ancient God's 7th finger. Vault of Heaven's finger. Jian Wushuang opened his mouth, and he was extremely imposing. All of a sudden, the index finger of his right hand, which had completely changed into a crystal jade, was pointed. The instant it was pointed out, the void in front of him burst open, and a space vortex which covered tens of thousands of miles appeared from it. The space vortex was twisting everything in the universe, and even the dark storm at the side twisted mercilessly. Rustle. More than half of the space storm, which originally covered the triangular island, was twisted instantly. The ancient god's finger, which was one of the ancient god clan's 4 unique skills, contained a total of 9 fingers, and every finger was more shocking than before. Just the 6th finger, the sun corrosion finger, was already earth-shaking. For the 7th finger, it would be very difficult for even 7-star ancient gods to use it under normal circumstances. Similarly, Jian Wushuang could not use it previously. It was not until all his 6 stars were destroyed and that his ancient god power rose greatly like never before that he could use the 7th finger for real. The Vault of Heaven's finger. A finger that could destroy the Vault of Heaven. A giant, dark golden finger came out from the space vortex which covered tens of thousands of miles, and it clashed head-on with the incoming crimson trident which had expanded crazily right away. With the clash, there were no violent booming sounds like before. However, the instant both attacks clashed, millions of miles of the surrounding void were torn apart into pieces. For example, the dark storm which had already been hit to the point that it almost fell apart was torn into pieces at that moment. In addition, the whole triangular island was completely exposed. In the void, 2 shocking powers were still opposing each other crazily. However, all of a sudden, boom. A great amount of aura descended from the void on top abruptly. Emperor God Shuaige's expression changed. After that, he raised his head abruptly and saw that the vault of heaven on top had undergone some changes for some reason. The vault of heaven had already changed into an extremely beautiful world. The world contained mountains, rivers, birds singing, and the fragrance of flowers. The most eye-catching thing was the 9 lofty continents that existed within the world. For the 9 lofty continents, each of them was extremely huge and vast, and the supreme aura that it emitted caused even Emperor God Shuaigu to be slightly fearful. This is a chaos divine treasure. Emperor God Shuaige's eyes shrank. Chaos divine treasures were the most powerful and valuable treasures in the eternal chaotic world. Even almighties and real gods did not have the right to possess them. For example, many Sur gods, which included some Sur gods with weaker abilities, did not have the right to possess a chaos divine treasure. As for Emperor God Shuaigu himself, he possessed a chaos divine treasure, and it was the crimson trident in his hands. The trident was extremely powerful, and with its power, Emperor God Shuaigu could be said to be someone powerful among the emperor gods. However, the trident was merely an attack-type divine weapon. Among many kinds of divine weapons, attack-type divine weapons were no doubt worth the least. However, the extremely beautiful continent which had appeared on top had caused Emperor God Shuaige's eyes to become scorching hot. It's indeed a chaos divine treasure. Moreover, it's a kind of chaos divine treasure that is extremely special, and it is worth so much that it is shocking. Emperor God Shuaige shook. He knew how valuable chaos divine treasures were. For his trident, he had paid a huge price for it. He had obtained it by luck after experiencing many life and death situations when he had entered a battlefield deep inside the second lair. Even though it was only an attack-type divine weapon, it was still enough to make many almighties envious of him. However, for the chaos divine treasure that Jian Wushuang took out, looking at its worth alone, it was worth at least 10 times more than his crimson trident. Ha, this is really not a wasted trip. Emperor God Shuaigu was extremely excited. His eyes, which were looking at Jian Wushuang, became filled with even more murderous intent. You wish to kill me and snatch my treasure away. Jian Wushuang could see through Emperor God Shuaige's thoughts completely, and he grinned hideously. That will depend on whether you can survive this. Mountain River Map. Mountain River as palm and 9 province as seal. Jian Wushuang uttered every word with a pause, and every word contained a special demonic power. In the vast vault of heaven, within the world of the picture scroll, which contained a total of 9 lofty continents, one of the continents was as if it were completely alive, and it freed itself from the world of the picture scroll. After that, it descended slowly. Rumble. The universe shook and all beings trembled with fear. This power, even if it were Emperor God Shuaigu, when he saw the continent that was descending, his eyes became filled with fear. 9 province of the universe, Qing province as the seal. First seal, split the heavens. Boom. The lofty continent descended completely. Mountain River Map, the first seal of the 9 seals of 9 province had descended. In a split second, all the living creatures in the world submitted themselves. Chapter 1744, Life and Death in a Split Second. Ha, interesting. There was excitement shimmering in Emperor God Shuaige's eyes. He noticed the terrifying power contained in the lofty continent. Not only was he not afraid, he was filled with excitement. The stronger the power of the lofty continent represented, the more amazing the chaos divine treasure was. And he definitely has to get a hold of the chaos divine treasure. Secret skill of bloodthirst, ternary in one breath. Emperor God roared, and there were 3 huge, lofty shadows of exotic beast. The 3 shadows were unique, but they shared a similarity. They were all soaring with rage. The crimson trident in his hand let out 3 different powers simultaneously. Suddenly, the power burst out. Heaven and earth were instantly silent. In the unprecedented silence, the lofty continent that was descending from the sky collided with the crimson trident. Rumble. Heaven fell and the earth was raised. The huge triangle island below Jian Wushuang and Emperor God Shuegu started falling and immersed under the sea. The island vanished into thin air along with the dark storm. The four figures in black robe were in the void far away. They felt the collision of two terrifying power, and the four Sur gods revealed a terrified expression. However, just as Jian Wushuang exchanged blows with Emperor God Shuegu using Mountain River map, at the bottom of the sea in the vast Buddhist demon sea, a young man's consciousness, which was asleep for God knows how long, suddenly woke up with a start. This is the aura of Nine-Province Continent. Nine-Province Continent that was refined and made into treasure many years ago. It was in the hands of Seven-Star Black Sect and it was named Mountain River Map. Seven-Star Black Sect's Mountain River Map appeared here. Ha! God is helping me. Go, kill all of the non-entities and bring back all their treasures. An ancient voice spoke and a black shadow departed from the deep ends of Buddhist Demon Sea at an unbelievably fast speed in the direction of Jian Wushuang and Emperor God Shuegu. They remained in the void above the Triangle Island, but the Triangle Island had already vanished into thin air. The two terrifying power were clashed vigorously and shook the earth. But suddenly, the three rays of crimson light burst out like three bloody suns that swept out all hindrances. The lofty continent that descended from the scroll painting world, although it was magnificent, cracked into three parts under the massive hit of three bloody suns and shattered completely. The sight made Jian Wushuang's expression grow distressed. He didn't perform Mountain River Map often, but every time he performed it, it never disappointed him. But then, the first seal of Mountain River Map that he had performed with his all was broken apart by his enemy. Emperor God Shuegu lives up to his name. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but compliment. However, he didn't feel hopeless. 9 province 9 seals and he was merely performing the first seal then. One should know that his divine power was great and he had already broken 6 ancient god stars. Then, he was already qualified to perform the second seal. The last trump card. Jian Wushuang's eyes were flashing and he fixed his gaze upon Emperor God Shuegu. At the next moment, the vast power of stars instantly swept out from his body. Secret Skills of Star Palace was finally cast. Secret Skills of Star Palace, River Mountain Map, Star Destruction Skill were all his biggest trump cards. He wouldn't perform those techniques hastily. But then, Jian Wushuang spared nothing. 9 province of the universe, you province as the seal, hack the earth. Terrifying divine power billowed. Rumble. Heaven and earth shook vigorously. From the sky in the beautiful scroll painting, there was another lofty continent that descended. The lofty continent was much bigger than the first. It was much loftier and more imposing. It was far beyond the first piece of the continent, far stronger. 9 province 9 seals, first split the heavens, secondly hack the earth. One was supposed to be stronger than another seal. Most importantly, the second seal was backed up with the power of stars. Jian Wushuang performed the second episode of Secret Skill of Star Palace with all his strength. In an instant, the order of Heaven Way seemed to be breaking apart. Under the Hack the Earth seal, Emperor God Shuegu, who had been smiling madly, finally stiffened. In the distant void, the 4 Sur God experts turned pale. Even though they were far away, they could feel the power contained in the Hack the Earth seal. The power struck fear in them and they were shivering hopelessly. It's impossible for him to be that strong, Emperor God Shuegu's hair instantly stood and his face distorted in agony. Hong! 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 Emperor God Shuegu's body let out 3 roars. Then, he spat a mouthful of blood. His blood wasn't red but a scalding gold. The mouthful of scalding gold blood fell onto his crimson trident. Then, the crimson trident instantly became unusually violent. Drive weapon with blood, slaughter a god with 100 ghosts. Secret skill. Ternary splits heaven and earth. Hong! A terrifying power suddenly exploded from the crimson trident. Emperor God Shui God had boundless divine power and energy flow out of his body. Obviously, Emperor God Shuegu gave his all to kill. A loud roar that sounded like it was outside the highest heavens struck fear into them. The three tips of the crimson trident flooded with crimson light. The crimson trident suddenly increased in size. It was originally the size of an ordinary divine weapon, but it grew in size by tens of thousands of times and became an unbelievable mountain. The three resplendent yet enchanting crimson lights burst out and hit the lofty continent that descended brutally. Life or death depends on this hit. Jian Wushuang looked determined and there was unprecedented insanity on his face. He already flashed all his trump cards and skills he had to brew his strongest hit. If the hit were to kill Emperor God Shuegu, he would be able to live. On the contrary, if Emperor God Shuegu were to survive the hit, he would definitely die. Emperor God Shuegu was as mad as he was. He obviously knew of the situation as well. Their lives and deaths were decided by the last hit. It was either life or death in a split second. In the void, the crimson trident that grew to the size of a mountain collided with the lofty continent that descended. Bang! The space-time instantly paused, the yin and yang crisscrossed, and the universe fell apart. A black hole that covered the expanse of 1,000,000 miles appeared from nowhere. The black hole swallowed everything in the universe with no mercy. The four Sur gods afar revealed an unprecedentedly terrified expression in that moment as they could feel the horror of the black hole. If they weren't far off, the black hole could totally strangle them to death. Chapter 1745, very dissatisfied, the space black hole which spread across millions of miles disappeared and the universe regained its peace gradually. Everything had come to an end. Jian Wushuang was standing at the void and he had a ghastly pale expression. The level of the mountain river map was too high. If he had only unleashed the first move, it would still be alright. However, Jian Wushuang had unleashed the second move at all costs. Although he had unleashed it forcefully, it still placed a huge burden on his body. The current him only felt that all his internal organs were damaged and he was in extreme pain. However, Jian Wushuang couldn't care less about his own injuries. His eyes were glowing brilliantly and he was staring persistently at the void in front of him. He was looking at the position that Emperor God Shuegu was in previously. When he saw the void and that Emperor God Shuegu's body was still standing there, his body shook fiercely. Not dead. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists and he was filled with an infinite amount of dissatisfaction. He had already given it his all by unleashing all his trump cards as well as techniques and staking everything on one attack. However, in the end, Emperor God Shuegu was still not dead yet. As expected of an Emperor God expert, Jian Wushuang laughed with grief. Jian Wushuang, run away quickly, the king of venomous worms' fierce roar echoed in Jian Wushuang's mind. However, Jian Wushuang was in agony. When did he not wish to run away? If he were able to run away, he would have done so a long time ago. If not, why would he stay behind and stake everything on one attack to fight it out with Emperor God Shuegu? The most important thing was that it was impossible for him to run away. His abilities were not too bad and if he were to use the secret skill of dragon blood, his speed would surpass many Sur gods. However, in front of an Emperor God, his speed was considered insignificant. He also knew that Emperor God Shuegu had always been proficient in speed to begin with. Moreover, the crimson trident in Emperor God Shuegu's hands could lock onto time and space. Hence, this would absolutely not give him any opportunity to escape. Under such circumstances, there was no way for him to escape. There was no way previously. At present, there was no way as well. In front of Jian Wushuang, Emperor God Shuegu was indeed not dead. However, he looked extremely miserable. The crimson robe on his body was filled with blood, his face was deathly pale like paper and his aura had decreased greatly. It was obvious that he was seriously injured as well. However, under such circumstances, Emperor God Shuegu was neither terrified nor furious. Instead, he was extremely excited and delighted. Ha! Jian Wushuang, I really did not expect you to actually have such a nature-defying treasure. You are merely a real god. To allow a real god to unleash such frightening power to the point that it almost killed me, this treasure is 100 times more valuable than my trident. No, it's 1,000 times, 10,000 times. I am very grateful to you for giving me such a wonderful treasure. Hence, I will let you die immediately. Emperor God Shuegu was roaring madly and the crimson trident in his hands glowed with a dazzling scarlet color. He then moved his legs and approached Jian Wushuang slowly. Is this the end? Jian Wushuang muttered and his eyes were filled with hopelessness. The king of venomous worms, who was in his body, went silent as well. The king of venomous worms knew that Jian Wushuang had already reached his limit. He had already unleashed all his moves and trump cards. In addition, the star power, as well as the power he gained from destroying all his 6 ancient god stars, were completely depleted from using the seal back then. If the current him were to face Emperor God Shuegu again, he would not have any power to resist. However, all of a sudden, wait, the king of venomous worms gave a shrill cry. Jian Wushuang's eyes also shrank fiercely and he looked at Emperor God Shuegu. All of a sudden, the black and boundless sea surface behind Emperor God Shuegu rose. A black shadow then appeared out of thin air and it was right behind Emperor God Shuegu. Emperor God Shuegu seemed to have noticed it as well and he turned his body immediately. After turning his body, his eyes became filled with shock. What he saw was a large, fierce-looking mouth that had already opened. The fierce-looking mouth contained 2 sharp, cold and long protruding teeth. Moreover, the big mouth was right in front of him and it headed toward him. No! Emperor God Shuegu roared extremely loudly like never before. Although he tried to struggle with all his might to escape, he was still unable to. When the fierce-looking mouth closed, Emperor God Shuegu's body disappeared completely and what replaced him was a huge, pitch-black head. The head was filled with black scales and it looked like a dragon as well as a snake at the same time. In addition, there was also 1 horn on its head. This is a flood dragon from the ancient past. A terrified and astonished voice came from the king of venomous worms. The king of venomous worms was a full-foot plenilune which was a supreme existence of the plenilune clan. However, when it saw the pitch-black enormous monster in front of it, it was horrified from the bottom of its heart. A flood dragon from the ancient past. An extremely frightening existence. As soon as it appeared, there was no room for Emperor God Shuegu to struggle at all and he was killed right away. Such a scene was seen clearly by Jian Wushuang and the 4 Sur gods who were in a void not too far away. At once, the 5 of them became extremely frightened. Run! Run away quickly! There is no room for Emperor God Shuegu to struggle at all. This is too frightening. The 4 black-robed Sur gods did not hesitate at all and they turned around to escape madly at once. All of them had also unleashed their speed to the best of their abilities. However, the moment they moved, the giant head of the flood dragon which had appeared from the sea surface also turned around at once. At the same time, it opened its big mouth again, buzz. Shockingly cold air spread across the area and covered the whole universe in an instant. It had also covered the 4 Sur gods. Originally, the 4 Sur gods were escaping with all their might. Moreover, the 4 of them had split up. However, all of a sudden, the 4 of them stopped moving in midair. The 4 of them opened their eyes wide and they were filled with an infinite amount of fear. However, a layer of frost had already covered their bodies and the frost spread continuously. In the end, the 4 of them were turned into ice sculptures. When a simple air current passed by, the 4 ice sculptures broke into pieces at once and dissipated across the universe. With just one face-off, not even a fragment of the 4 Sur gods who had besieged Jian Wushuang previously remained. After that, the giant head of the ancient flood dragon looked at Jian Wushuang fiercely. The pair of eyes on its head, which were glowing with a thin layer of gray light, then locked onto Jian Wushuang hastily like two electric arcs. Murderous intent also flashed past its eyes. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang did not see how the flood dragon moved at all. However, the flood dragon had already appeared in front of him. At the same time, it opened its fierce-looking mouth again, and its target this time around was Jian Wushuang. Just like Emperor God Shuegu, Jian Wushuang did his best to escape. However, at the instant the flood dragon opened its mouth, Jian Wushuang realized that the space and time that he was in had been completely sealed off. His body was also frozen and he could not move at all. He could only look on as the head of the flood dragon headed toward him. "Am I going to die?" Jian Wushuang murmured, "Since I am about to die, it is better for me to die in the hands of this ancient flood dragon rather than at the hands of the experts of the Acheron Palace. However, it's a pity that I have not found Ling Rushue and rescued Shuang'e yet. In addition, I have also not found out about Master's real identity, and am going to die just like this. How dissatisfying." Chapter 1746, Armageddon Bang. The shockingly loud bang wasn't the noise from Jian Wushuang being eaten by the ancient flood dragon, it was the noise of a fierce hit on the flood dragon's head. It then immersed itself under the sea. What? Jian Wushuang, who was originally hopeless, opened his eyes widely and watched everything that happened before his eyes in shock. He saw a blurry figure in the void before him. The figure was about 10,000 zhang tall. It was enormously huge. Although he couldn't see the appearance clearly, he reckoned that it should be an elderly from the outline of the figure. But who was the elderly? When did he appear? Roar! An angry roar that sounded like a dragon's roar shook heaven and earth vigorously. It stirred up billowing waves in the entire surface of Dark Sea region, and the ancient flood dragon revealed itself. Its huge body was not only one size bigger than King of Venomous Worm, the huge head was extremely ferocious, while its faint gray pupils were covered in coldness and murderous intention, and it was looking at the huge shadow that was 10,000 zhang tall. "Hee, little thing. You do not deserve to make me take action personally. Let the one behind you come out." The blurry shadow that embodied an elderly let out a hearty laugh. His laughter was heard from all directions, and it contained a unique magic power. As his voice stopped, crack! In the vast void, there was suddenly a huge black hand that pierced through. It was huge and towering like a boundless mountain. Then, a shadow that was 10,000 zhang tall stepped out of the black hole and stood opposite the blurry elderly in the distance. The moment the black shadow appeared, the ancient flood dragon that was giving out a chilliness immediately became tame. Obviously, the black shadow was the master of the ancient flood dragon. These. What are all these? Jian Wushuang was surprised. He knew clearly that the ancient flood dragon could kill an emperor god easily, and it was not something he could match evenly. But then, there were suddenly two blurry shadows that were 10,000 zhang tall and much scarier than the ancient flood dragon. The two shadows were obviously substantiated with consciousness but not their original bodies. However, as they stood there, Jian Wushuang felt that besides Long Qi and his master that he had come across in the independent space in the 8th lair back then, there was no one in the whole world that could win against him. But why would the shadows of the superb existences suddenly appear in Buddhist Demon Sea? Jian Wushuang was quivering in fear, and he stayed behind the shadow of the elderly. He didn't dare to move an inch. King of Venomous Worms in his body was frightened and remained silent too. "One-star man, you old man, you are awakened too," the blurry shadow said under black armor while the ancient flood dragon stayed by his side. His deep voice reverberated in Buddhist Demon Sea, and it stirred stormy waves all over Buddhist Demon Sea. "Ha, in the same region, as you are awakened, how can I continue to stay asleep?" The blurry shadow that the elder took the form of, also known as the One-Star Man, burst out into a hearty laugh. "So what if you woke up? I'm killing these few non-entities, what does it have to do with you?" The shadow in black armor asked coldly. You can kill anyone else, but the young man behind me has Mountain River map and he knows the secret skill of 7-star. He definitely shared a relationship with 7-star Black Sect. Do you think I'll let you kill him? 1-star man laughed. You want, and I can't, kill him. The shadow in a black armor let his murderous intention bellow. As he finished his sentence, he took a huge stride forward. With just one step, Jian Wushuang felt as though he had traversed 2 different eras. The shadow in black armor appeared in front of the blurry shadow that the 1-star man took the form of. Then, he simply punched. On the other hand, 1-star man waved his hand casually. Bang! There was a loud bang and the universe broke apart. The huge sea that covered an expanse of tens of millions of miles instantly sunk in, and it sunk all the way down to the bottom of the sea. It even revealed the reefs in the seabed. There were countless tsunamis and every single wave was more than 1,000,000 zhang high as it dispersed in all directions madly. Jian Wushuang was right in the middle of the tsunami and he felt the tsunami shattering everything like breaking dead wood. It stirred a commotion up in his heart as well. Merely a brief hit had caused such unbelievable power. Just how strong were the 2 people that were fighting? The experts of Great Emperor level in Eternal Chaotic World were nothing. Jian Wushuang muttered. Plus, the 2 of them hadn't come in person but merely in the form of shadow that they had substantiated temporarily. Bang! 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 The roars spread over continuously and every roar came with boundless waves. The vigorous battle between the 2 made the universe seem to pale into insignificance. If one wasn't the level of Great Emperor, he couldn't even think of getting involved in such a vigorous battle. Just like Jian Wushuang, forget about getting involved, he couldn't even open his eyes when he was in the boundless tsunami. He could only feel the boundless power explode madly. 1-star man, you really want to go against me? An angry voice roared through the universe. Ha, so what if I go against you? It's not like we never fought before. Not only do I want to keep this young man alive, I also want to provide him with an opportunity to let him grow stronger faster. 1-star man's voice was loud and clear. Young man, look closely. Jian Wushuang, who was in the boundless tsunami, forced his eyes open. As he opened his eyes, he happened to see a huge hand. A huge hand that seemed to press the entire sky, the entire universe. The huge hand was gray and it was blurry. Besides the boundless divine power that it contained, there was another kind of energy. The energy was the power of reincarnation. Constellation Theurgy. Extermination Palm of Reincarnation. Rumble. The huge hand descended magnificently. Jian Wushuang was dumbfounded at the sight. He stared at the huge hand and the huge hand continuously appeared in his head and continuously magnified in size. In the end, it was completely sealed in his memory. Hong! The power of the huge hand exploded and the shadow in black armor knelt down from the slab. The shadow dispersed slightly. B*****. A roar with boundless rage spread and the shadow in black armor substantiated again. Black Scale, kill that boy. The shadow in black armor roared while the ancient flood dragon that was fighting alongside him suddenly let out a chilly gleam. Then, the chilliness turned into an air current and froze the void. Then, it bypassed 1-star man's huge shadow and shot at Jian Wushuang. Be careful. 1-star man roared. Jian Wushuang's face changed. Chapter 1747, the power of a throw. Jian Wushuang had seen with his own eyes that when the ancient flood dragon had released cold air from its mouth, the cold air had annihilated the 4 Sur gods instantly. The cold air from the mouth of the ancient flood dragon was heading toward him. As its speed was too fast, Jian Wushuang had no way of dodging it and he also did not have the ability to dodge it. The cold air covered his body instantly and at that moment, it was as if the cold air wanted to freeze his body, mind, and consciousness completely. He then trembled with fear from the bottom of his heart. Humph. Jian Wushuang snorted coldly. In such a situation which was of great concern to life and death, Jian Wushuang remained extremely calm like never before. His divine power rose madly and it was as if a volcano had erupted. His divine power then blocked the corrosion from the coldness. The coldness was extremely powerful and it destroyed Jian Wushuang's divine power easily. However, Jian Wushuang had a great amount of divine power. Jian Wushuang was an inverse cultivator and he had also achieved the limit of stage 2 ultimate real god where he had already precipitated a total of 99 ultimate divine power water droplets. With 99 ultimate divine power water droplets, the amount of divine power that he possessed was many times more than that of an emperor god. With such a great amount of divine power appearing continuously to replace the dissipated divine power, it hindered the coldness madly. At the same time, it was also depleting the power of the coldness continuously. I must block it at all costs. Jian Wushuang closed his eyes tightly and he was roaring furiously in his heart. At the same time that his ultimate divine power was blocking the corrosion from the coldness, his divine power was also being depleted at a shocking speed. Such a rate of depletion was even faster than when he had unleashed the secret skill of dragon blood with his full power. After just a short amount of time, he had already depleted 90% of the ultimate divine power in his body. Finally, the coldness dissipated gradually. Jian Wushuang's body, which was close to being completely frozen, also turned back to normal slowly. I have blocked it. Jian Wushuang was panting heavily and he still had lingering fears. It was 90% of his divine power. Although he had such a vast amount of divine power, he had still depleted 90% of it in one go to block the coldness. However, if it were someone else, for example, for the 4 Sur gods who were killed by the coldness of the ancient flood dragon, their divine power would be less than 1/100th of Jian Wushuang's divine power. Hence, they would absolutely be unable to block the corrosion from the coldness. If it were an emperor god, he would be unable to block it as well. Only Jian Wushuang could block it with his vast amount of divine power. Even though that was the case, under the corrosion of the coldness, his internal organs had sustained great damage like never before. In addition, his body and mind were totally exhausted. He then spit out a big mouthful of blood. His aura had become extremely weak and it was at rock bottom. He's actually not dead, the black-armored shadow could not help but be surprised. As for the ancient flood dragon under him, it gave a roar and it seemed to be furious. The one-star man heaved a sigh of relief and said loudly, "Little kid, this battlefield is not a place that you can stay at. Let me send you out of here first. Don't resist." After speaking, a big hand from the giant shadow of the one-star man was swung out and it headed toward Jian Wushuang straight away. Jian Wushuang naturally did not resist. Even if he wanted to resist, he did not have the ability to do so. In no time, he was grabbed by the one-star man's big hand. After that, "Go!" The one-star man gave a cry and his big hand exerted a great amount of strength as though he was throwing a lance and he threw Jian Wushuang out. A frightening amount of strength burst forth. Jian Wushuang then swept past the void and created a ray of light in his path. In a split second, he had disappeared from the battlefield. Upon seeing that, the black-armored shadow could not help but be extremely furious. "Old man, today, I shall have a proper fight with you," a furious voice could be heard from the black-armored shadow. "Ha, we are both shadows substantiated by consciousness and we are also under many restrictions. Who is afraid of whom?" The one-star man was not fearful in the slightest. 2 earth-shaking experts continued to have an intense battle in the Buddhist demon sea. In no time, the whole Buddhist demon sea was on the verge of collapsing. Whoosh! A flittering light flew by at an extremely frightening speed. The violent sound of him sweeping past the sky was accompanied by an infinite amount of strong winds. Hence, Jian Wushuang was unable to open his eyes at all. The speed was too fast. It was countless times faster than the speed that Jian Wushuang had escaped with when he had unleashed the secret skill of dragon blood with his full power. It should be known that his current speed was not unleashed by him. Instead, the speed came from the one-star man throwing him out. He even had no idea when he would stop. Thus, he could only resign himself to fate. Time passed by and close to 7 minutes time had passed. However, Jian Wushuang's body had still not come to a stop yet. At that time, he was already extremely far away from the battlefield from before. At the void at the edge of the Buddhist demon sea in the 6th lair, there were 3 shadows moving about slowly. This is the edge of the Buddhist demon sea. The Buddhist demon sea is a great forbidden area of the 6th lair. While it is alright for us to travel at the edge, we must absolutely not enter it, a hale and hearty grey-robed old man explained. I have heard of the Buddhist demon sea before as well. It is said that if a real god were to enter the Buddhist demon sea, he would definitely die. However, Sir God Qianlan, with your abilities, it should not be a problem for you to travel inside, the young man with slightly pale skin mocked. Ha, don't flatter me. I am certain of my own abilities. For the Buddhist demon core, if there is no need to, it is better to not go in randomly, the hale grey-robed old man who was Sir God Qianlan from the Soaring Heaven King Palace laughed. As for the pale-skinned young man, he was real God Han Quan of the Soaring Heaven King Palace. As for the last person, he was another real god of the Soaring Heaven King Palace who was in the real god ranking list and his name was real God Ing Yun. 1 Sir God and 2 experts from the real god ranking list. With such a lineup in the 6th lair, as long as they did not look for trouble by going into a forbidden area like the Buddhist demon sea, they could probably go anywhere they wanted. Then, whoosh! All of a sudden, a sound of something sweeping in the sky could be heard. Moreover, the sound was getting louder and louder. Sir God Qianlan and the 2 other people looked at the source of the sound immediately. They then saw a flittering light being shot out from the Buddhist demon sea with a shocking speed by chance. The flittering light was moving at an extremely fast speed and it swept past the void beside the 3 of them in an instant. This is, Sir God Qianlan and the 2 other people opened their eyes wide. What a fast speed! What is that flittering light from just now? Real God Han Quan said, dumbfounded. The speed of the flittering light was too fast. It was so fast that all of them, including Sir God Qianlan, did not manage to get a clear look at what exactly it was. With such a fast speed and that it came from within the Buddhist demon sea, no matter what it is, we should follow it and take a look. Sir God Qianlan and the 2 other people started to move immediately. They followed the direction where the flittering light was shot to and headed over quickly. If the flittering light had maintained its frightening speed, with just the 3 of them, they would definitely be unable to catch up to it for their whole life. However, after the flittering light left the Buddhist demon sea, its speed began to decrease at once. In no time, the flittering light came to a complete stop at a piece of void. After the flittering light dissipated, a shadow appeared. This shadow was Jian Wushuang. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.